The bullet punched through Lieutenant Commander Hayes 3 seconds before the explosion. Staff Sergeant Maya Chan watched through her scope as her commanding officer disappeared into the fireball. 70 meters from the extraction point, they had fought 6 hours to reach. The other SEALs were already pulling back, voices crackling through comms. "He's gone. Fall back." But Maya had made a promise to herself 8 years ago, the day a different commander left her brother behind in Kandahar. She zeroed her scope on the coordinates where Hayes had fallen. Nobody gets left behind. Not on my watch. The desert heat shimmered across her vision as she adjusted her position on the ridge. Her M110 SAS felt like an extension of her body after 18 months attached to SEAL Team 7. 18 months of proving herself with every shot, every mission, every moment these men looked past her like she was invisible. Master Chief Dalton Reeves' voice cut through her earpiece with the authority of 26 years in naval special warfare. "All units fall back to Rally Point Charlie. Mission abort. Hayes is Kia. Chun." That is a direct order. Maya's finger rested against the trigger guard. Through her scope, she could see movement in the rubble where Hayes had fallen. Not the jerky scramble of enemy fighters, but the deliberate crawl of someone trained to survive. He was alive. She keyed her mic. "I have visual on the commander. He's mobile." Reeves did not hesitate. "Negative. Thermal shows nothing. You're seeing what you want to see, Chun. Fall back now, or I will have you brought up on charges." The other SEALs were already 50 meters back, moving with the fluid efficiency that came from operating as a single organism. Maya had never been part of that organism. She was the attachment, the Marine Scout sniper assigned because someone in command thought having a female on the team looked good for recruiting videos. Reeves made sure she knew it every single day. Her spotter, Corporal James Vickers, touched her shoulder. "Staff Sergeant, we need to move. The ridge is going to be overrun in 90 seconds. Maya tracked the movement through her scope. Hayes had made it behind a collapsed wall, 30 meters from his original position. That was not thermal ghost or wishful thinking. That was a SEAL commander doing what SEALs did best, staying alive against impossible odds. Before we continue, drop a comment and let us know what state you are watching from. Maybe you have witnessed similar acts of courage where you are from. 8 years ago, her brother had been that movement in the rubble. Army Specialist David Chun, pinned down in a Kandahar marketplace after an IED strike tore through his patrol. She had listened to the radio intercepts from her station at Bagram, heard the commander call the abort, heard her brother's final transmission asking why they were leaving. She was 17 and working as a translator, too young to do anything but listen as the silence stretched and then went permanent. She had joined the Marines 6 months later, earned her place in Scout Sniper School by outscoring every male candidate, attached herself to special operations because that was where the men who made those decisions lived. And she had promised herself, promised David's memory, that she would never be the one who left someone behind. Vickers was already packing their equipment. "Staff Sergeant, please." Maya made her decision. She always knew she would. "Tell Reeves I am pursuing a positive ID on the commander. Radio silence until I confirm Kia's status." She did not wait for his response. The ridge dropped away in a series of rocky outcrops that would provide cover for the first 200 meters. After that, it was open ground to the compound where Hayes had gone down. Open ground meant exposure. Exposure meant every fighter in the area would have a clear shot. Her radio erupted. "Chun, you are in direct violation of a lawful order. Return to rally point immediately." Maya switched her radio to emergency frequency only and started moving. The M110 was heavy across her back, her pack heavier still, but she had humped worse loads through worse terrain. The Scout Sniper course did not make exceptions. Neither did she. The sun was dropping toward the horizon, painting the Iraqi desert in shades of amber and blood. In 90 minutes, it would be full dark. Hayes would not survive 90 minutes if he was wounded. The explosion had been close enough to cause serious trauma, even if the initial gunshot had not been fatal. She reached the bottom of the ridge and pressed herself against a bullet-scarred wall. The compound was 400 meters across open ground. 400 meters where she would be completely exposed. The smart play was to wait for darkness. The safe play was to obey orders and let someone else live with the consequences. Maya checked her rifle, confirmed her ammunition count, and stepped into the open. The first shots came before she had covered 50 meters. Rounds kicked up dust to her left as she sprinted toward a burned-out vehicle. She dropped behind it and returned fire, 3 quick shots that sent the shooters diving for cover. Not kills, just suppression. Enough to buy her 10 seconds. She was up and moving again before they could reacquire. Her lungs burned. The pack seemed to gain weight with every step. 200 meters. She could see the compound walls now, pockmarked with shell damage and streaked with soot. Somewhere behind those walls, Hayes was bleeding out. More gunfire erupted from her right. She threw herself into a drainage ditch as rounds snapped overhead. The ditch was shallow, barely deep enough to provide cover, but it ran toward the compound. She low-crawled through filth and debris, her rifle cradled in her arms. 70 meters from the compound wall, she heard the sound that changed everything. A helicopter, not the extraction bird that had already left. This was the distinct whop of a Black Hawk, and it was coming in fast. Reese had called in air support, not to help with the rescue, to force her extraction. The Black Hawk swept over the ridge, spotlight blazing. They were coming for her. The voice over the loudspeaker confirmed it. Staff Sergeant Chun, stand down and prepare for extraction. This is your final warning. Maya reached the compound wall and pressed against it. Through a gap in the shattered concrete, she could see Hayes. He had made it into what looked like a storage room. His left leg was twisted at an angle that made her stomach turn. Blood soaked through his uniform. He was trying to apply a tourniquet one-handed. The Black Hawk was hovering directly overhead now, downdraft sending dust devils swirling through the compound. Reeves' voice came through on the emergency frequency. Chun, you have 30 seconds to show yourself, or I am sending a team in to extract you by force. Your career is over. Do not make it worse. Maya looked at Hayes. He had seen her. His eyes met hers through the gap in the wall. He shook his head slowly. Too dangerous. Not worth it. Go. She had heard that before. Different voice, different country, same resignation. David had shaken his head like that too, in the grainy drone footage she had requested years later through back channels she was not supposed to have, telling his team to leave him, making it easy for them. Maya keyed her mic to the Black Hawk frequency. Master Chief, I have positive visual confirmation. Commander Hayes is alive and requires immediate case vac. I am providing security until extraction team arrives. The silence that followed told her everything she needed to know. They were not sending an extraction team. They were sending a team to arrest her. The difference mattered. She pulled a smoke grenade from her vest and tossed it into the compound yard. Purple smoke billowed up, marking her position. Not for the Black Hawk. For Hayes. So he would know she was coming. So he would know someone was willing to break every rule to bring him home. The Black Hawk pulled back, rotors screaming. Maya squeezed through the gap in the wall and sprinted across the compound. 30 meters. 20. Hayes was trying to wave her off, his face pale with blood loss and shock. She dropped beside him and immediately began assessing his injuries. Gunshot wound to the left shoulder, through and through. Left femur fractured, probably from the explosion. Multiple lacerations, possible concussion, definite shock. Survivable if they moved fast. She pulled out her med kit and started working. Hayes grabbed her wrist with his good hand. You just ended your career. Maya applied pressure to the shoulder wound. So did you, the day you decided to care more about the mission than covering your ass. Now shut up and let me work. Outside the compound, she could hear vehicles approaching. Not friendlies. The explosion and firefight had drawn every hostile within 10 clicks. The Black Hawk was gone. The SEALs were gone. It was just her, a wounded commander, and whatever she could carry on her back. Hayes was watching her face. You are David Chen's sister. Maya's hands did not stop moving. You knew. I read every file of every person assigned to my team. He paused, breathing hard against the pain. I am sorry we left him. Maya secured the tourniquet and pulled Hayes into a sitting position. Yeah, me too. That is why we are leaving together. Can you move? The sound of approaching vehicles grew louder. They had maybe 2 minutes before the compound was swarmed. Hayes tested his weight on his good leg and nearly passed out. Maya caught him and hauled his arm over her shoulders. Together they staggered toward the back wall, where the structure had partially collapsed, creating a gap large enough to squeeze through. Behind them, the first vehicle screeched to a halt in the compound yard. Voices shouted in Arabic. Maya pushed Hayes through the gap and followed, then pulled a fragmentation grenade from her vest. She counted 3 seconds and rolled it back through the gap. The explosion bought them 30 more seconds of chaos. They were in an alley now, narrow and choked with debris. Maya half-carried, half-dragged Hayes toward what looked like an abandoned building. The voices behind them were getting organized. A search pattern was forming. She pulled Hayes into the building's ground floor and lowered him against a wall. His breathing was labored, his skin clammy, going into shock despite the tourniquet. She needed to get fluids into him, needed to stabilize that leg, needed about 6 things she did not have time to do. Hayes pulled something from his vest with shaking hands. A small hard drive, military grade, sealed in waterproof casing. Get this to command. More important than me. Maya took the drive and shoved it into her pocket. I will hand-deliver it when we both get home. Now save your strength. The building had stairs leading up. Probably structural suicide to climb them, but it would give her a vantage point to assess their situation. She left Hayes with her sidearm and climbed fast, testing each step. The second floor was mostly intact. She moved to a window and scanned the streets. 8 hostiles in the immediate area, more arriving. The compound was now a hub of activity. No sign of friendly forces. The ridge where her team had been was dark and empty. They had completed the extraction without her. Reeves had written her off. She pulled out her tactical radio and switched to the command frequency. This is Scout 7 to any friendly forces. I have Commander Hayes alive, but critical. Requesting immediate casevac at grid coordinates November Delta 47628. Hostiles converging. Need air support. Static answered her. Then a voice she recognized. Reeves. Chun, no air support is authorized for your position. You are on your own. Command considers this a rogue operation. Return Hayes' body and surrender yourself for court-martial. Maya smiled without humor. He thinks Hayes is already dead. Correction, Master Chief. Hayes is alive and mobile. Also, he would like a word with you when we get back. The silence that followed was different. Reeves had not expected that. Neither had anyone else listening on the frequency. Maya could imagine the command center, everyone frozen as the implication sank in. She had just made their decision much more complicated. A new voice came through, younger, uncertain. Staff Sergeant Shun, this is Lieutenant Briggs. Can you confirm Commander Hayes is alive and conscious? Hayes was leaning in the doorway below, his face a mask of determination and pain. He held up 3 fingers. Maya keyed the mic confirmed. Commander is conscious and tracking. He also wants me to remind you he is still in command of this operation. The radio crackled. Then Hayes' voice, weak but clear, as Maya held the radio down for him. Briggs, you tell Master Chief Reeves that Staff Sergeant Shun is operating under my direct authority. Air support is not a request. It is an order. Do I make myself clear? A long pause. Then, yes, sir. Air support is inbound. ETA 12 minutes. 12 minutes was a lifetime when every second brought enemy fighters closer. Maya moved back down the stairs, each step careful to avoid making noise. Hayes had slumped against the wall, his face gray beneath the dust and blood. She checked his pulse. Thready but steady. The tourniquet was holding. She pulled out a 4 kit from her med pack and started a line in his good arm. The saline would help with the shock by them time. Hayes watched her work with half-lidded eyes. You learned this at Scout Sniper School, he said quietly. Combat avec course. Maya secured the 4 bag to a piece of rebar jutting from the wall. Every Marine is a rifleman first, everything else second. You know that. Hayes managed a weak smile. Reeves said you would not make it through the first month. Said women did not have what it takes for special operations. What did you say? I told him to shut up and give you a chance to prove him wrong. His breathing was getting more labored. "You have certainly done that today." Outside, the sound of vehicles had multiplied. Maya risked a glance through a crack in the wall. At least 15 hostiles now, spreading out in a search pattern. They knew someone was in the area. The explosion and firefight had been too precise, too professional. They were looking for American operators. She pulled Hayes further into the shadows and positioned herself between him and the door. Her M110 was ready, her sidearm within easy reach. If they found this building, she would hold them as long as possible. Long enough for the air support to arrive. Long enough for Hayes to survive. The minutes crawled by. 7 minutes until air support. 6. 5. Hayes spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you really come back for me, Chun?" Maya kept her eyes on the street. "Because you are my commanding officer, and I do not leave people behind." That is the Marine Corps answer. What is the real answer? She was quiet for a moment, watching shadows move between buildings. "Because 8 years ago, I listened to my brother die on a radio, while people who were supposed to bring him home decided he was not worth the risk. Because I swore I would never be one of those people. Because if I left you behind, I would become exactly what I hate." Hayes absorbed this. Your brother was in Kandahar. The marketplace, IED. You did your research. I made it my business to know why the best sniper I have ever worked with volunteers for every high-risk assignment like she has nothing to lose. He coughed, wincing at the pain. Turns out she is trying to save someone who is already gone. Maya's jaw tightened. "I'm trying to save you, Commander. Focus on that." The radio crackled. "Scout 7, this is Viper 1-3. Air support inbound, 3 minutes out. Provide target designation." Maya keyed her mic and relayed coordinates for the enemy positions. The 810 Warthog pilot confirmed and asked for her location so they could avoid hitting friendlies. She gave the grid coordinates of their building and marked it with an IR strobe that would be invisible to the naked eye but clear as day through the pilot's night vision. Hayes pulled himself more upright. "When we get back, Reeves is going to do everything he can to destroy you. Court-martial for disobeying orders, reckless endangerment, unauthorized engagement. He has the entire chain of command on his side. Then I guess you better stay alive to testify that I was following your orders. I was unconscious when you made the decision to come back." Maya looked at him directly. "Were you?" Hayes held her gaze. He understood what she was offering. A lie that would save her career. All he had to do was say he had ordered her to provide security, that she had been following commands he gave before losing consciousness. It would be his word against Reeves, and Hayes outranked everyone involved. "I could do that," Hayes said slowly. "Or I could tell the truth, that you disobeyed every order, violated every protocol, and saved my life anyway. That you are exactly the kind of Marine we need in special operations, even if it makes men like Reeves uncomfortable." The building shook as the A-10 made its first pass. The sound of the Ju-8 Avenger cannon was unmistakable, a deep thrumming roar that turned enemy positions into scrap metal and dust. Maya counted the seconds between passes. The pilot was good, surgical strikes that eliminated threats without bringing the whole area down. She helped Hayes to his feet as the second pass began. "Time to move. Extraction will be at the northern edge of the engagement area. Can you walk?" Hayes tested his weight on a makeshift splint Maya had applied to his leg. With help, they moved together through the ruined building, Hayes leaning heavily on Maya's shoulders. Each step was agony for him. She could see it in the set of his jaw, but he did not complain. SEALs did not complain. They completed the mission. Outside, the street was chaos. The A-10 had done its job. Burning vehicles, scattered fighters, confusion, and panic. Maya guided Hayes through the smoke, using the confusion as cover. 200 meters to the extraction point. They could make it. A fighter appeared from a doorway, AK-47 rising. Maya did not hesitate. Her sidearm was up and firing before he could acquire his target. 2 shots center mass. He dropped. She kept moving, scanning for additional threats. Hayes was fading. The adrenaline that had kept him going was burning out. His weight grew heavier with each step. Maya adjusted her grip and pushed forward. 100 meters. 50. The Black Hawk appeared over the roofline, spotlight cutting through the smoke. But it was not alone. A second helicopter, a little bird, provided cover with mounted miniguns that made the A-10 seem gentle by comparison. Someone had authorized overwhelming force for this extraction. The Black Hawk touched down in a parking lot cleared of debris. The crew chief was already waving them in, medic ready. Maya half-carried, half-dragged Hayes across the final 30 meters. Hands reached out to take him from her. She released her grip and stumbled, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. The medic went to work immediately, checking vitals, adjusting the four, stabilizing Hayes for transport. The crew chief pulled Maya aboard, and the Black Hawk lifted off before she had even fully settled into the seat. Below them, the A-10 made one final pass, ensuring nothing would follow. Maya sat in the troop bay, her rifle across her knees, watching Hayes. The medic gave her a thumbs up. He would make it. She had done it. Brought him home alive. Across from her, another passenger sat in full combat gear. Master Chief Dalton Reeves. His face was stone, his eyes cold. He had come on the extraction bird specifically to be here for this moment. He leaned forward so she could hear him over the rotor noise. You just committed career suicide, Staff Sergeant. I hope it was worth it. Maya met his stare without flinching. Ask Commander Hayes if it was worth it. Hayes opened his eyes at the sound of his name. His gaze shifted between Maya and Reeves. When he spoke, his voice was weak but clear. Master Chief, when we land, I want you to submit a recommendation for Staff Sergeant Chun to receive the Navy Cross. She single-handedly held hostile forces while providing emergency medical care under fire. That is the textbook definition of valor. Reeves' expression did not change. Sir, with respect, she disobeyed direct orders to abandon a mission. That is the textbook definition of insubordination. Hay smiled slightly. Then I guess we will let the review board decide which textbook matters more. But for the record, Master Chief, any order to abandon a living team member is not a lawful order. It never was. The silence in the helicopter was absolute, except for the rotor wash. Reeves had just been outmaneuvered by a wounded man running on pain medication and sheer stubbornness. Every person in that bird had heard it. The crew chief was trying not to smile. The medic had stopped working just to listen. Reeves sat back, his jaw working. This is not over, Chun. Maya pulled her canteen and took a long drink. I did not think it would be, Master Chief. The flight back to base took 20 minutes. Long enough for the medic to stabilize Hayes completely. Long enough for Maya to realize what she had really done. She had not just rescued her commanding officer. She had declared war on the old guard, on the men who believed women weakened the teams, on everyone who thought loyalty was less important than following orders. The Black Hawk touched down at the forward operating base medical facility. Hayes was rushed into surgery immediately. Maya was escorted not to debriefing, but to a holding area. Not quite under arrest, but not quite free either. The legal gray zone where her career would live or die. She sat on a bench outside the command building, still in her combat gear, still covered in dust and Hayes blood. Other operators walked past, some nodding in respect, others looking away. Word had already spread about what happened. In the tight community of special operations, there were no secrets. Vickers appeared, carrying 2 bottles of water and a protein bar. He sat beside her without asking permission. The entire team heard what Hayes said about the Navy Cross. Maya opened one of the water bottles. Reeves will block it. He has friends in high places. Maybe. Vickers unwrapped the protein bar and handed her half. But Hayes has something Reeves does not have. That hard drive you brought back. Apparently, it contains intelligence on a high-value target that has been evading us for 6 months. The kind of intelligence that makes careers and ends wars. Maya had forgotten about the hard drive. She pulled it from her pocket, still sealed, still intact. Hayes had called it more important than his life. She had thought he was being dramatic. Vickers looked at it with something like awe. You just brought back the crown jewels, Staff Sergeant. That changes the conversation considerably. Does it change the fact that I disobeyed a direct order? Vickers smiled. In the teams, we have a saying. It is easier to ask forgiveness than permission. You asked for neither and saved the commander's life. that is going to be hard to punish without looking like we value rules more than people. The door to the command building opened. A lieutenant emerged, crisp and official. Staff Sergeant Shun, you are requested inside. Maya stood, her muscles protesting after sitting. Vickers touched her shoulder. Whatever happens, you did the right thing. Everyone knows it. She walked into the command building, into whatever judgment waited. But for the first time since she had made the decision to go back for Hayes, she did not feel afraid. She had kept her promise. She had brought someone home. And if that cost her everything else, at least she could live with herself. The conference room held more brass than she had ever seen in one place. Colonels, lieutenant colonels, a one-star general she recognized from briefings. And in the corner, watching with those cold eyes, Master Chief Dalton Reeves. The general gestured to a chair. Sit down, Staff Sergeant Shun. We have a lot to discuss. The general did not waste time with pleasantries. Staff Sergeant Shun, do you understand the severity of what you have done? Maya sat at attention in the chair, her hands resting on her knees. Yes, sir. I disobeyed a direct order to abort the mission and return to the rally point. The general leaned back, studying her. Master Chief Reeves has recommended you for court-martial. He has outlined 17 separate violations of a uniform code of military justice. His report is quite thorough. Maya kept her eyes forward. I understand, sir. What you do not understand, the general continued, is that Commander Hayes has submitted his own report, one that paints a very different picture of today's events. He claims you were operating under his direct authority the entire time. Reeves spoke from the corner, his voice tight. Sir, with respect, Commander Hayes was unconscious when Staff Sergeant Shun made the decision to pursue. He cannot give orders while incapacitated. The general did not look at Reeves. Master Chief, I have reviewed the helmet camera footage from 3 different operators. Hayes was mobile and conscious for approximately 90 seconds after the initial explosion. Plenty of time to issue orders. That is not what thermal imaging showed, Reeves insisted. The general finally turned to face him. Then perhaps we should discuss why your thermal imaging failed to detect a living operator while Staff Sergeant Chen's visual confirmation proved accurate. That seems like a critical equipment failure worth investigating. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Maya understood what was happening. The general was not here to punish her. He was here to manage a political disaster. A female Marine had just made an entire SEAL team look incompetent by doing what they had refused to do. One of the colonels, a weathered officer with Ranger tabs, spoke up. Staff Sergeant, walk us through your decision-making process. When did Commander Hayes give you the order to provide security? Maya met his eyes. Sir, Commander Hayes and I discussed contingency protocols before the mission began. He made it clear that in the event of his incapacitation during combat, I was to use my judgment to ensure mission success and personnel recovery. When I observed him mobile after the explosion, I determined that recovery was possible. It was not technically a lie. Hayes had said exactly that during their pre-mission briefing, though it had been directed at the entire team, not her specifically. But the colonel was giving her an opening, a way to frame her actions as following standing orders rather than going rogue. The colonel nodded slowly. So you were executing Commander's intent rather than waiting for explicit instruction? Yes, sir. In fluid combat situations, waiting for orders can mean the difference between mission success and failure. Reeves stepped forward, unable to contain himself. General Kincaid, this is absurd. She is twisting protocol to justify insubordination. I gave her a direct order to fall back. She refused. That is black and white. General Kincaid held up a hand. Master Chief, I have heard your position. Now I would like to hear what Staff Sergeant Chen brought back besides Commander Hayes. Maya pulled the hard drive from her pocket and placed it on the table. Commander Hayes instructed me to ensure this reached command. He indicated it contained time-sensitive intelligence. The general took the drive and handed it to an intelligence officer standing by the door. The officer disappeared with it immediately. Kincaid turned back to Maya. Commander Hayes was captured and interrogated for approximately 40 minutes before you reached him. Did he indicate whether the enemy had accessed this drive? No, sir. He had it secured in a waterproof case inside his vest. They had not found it yet. The room went silent. Everyone understood the implications. If the enemy had accessed that intelligence, ongoing operations across the theater could have been compromised. Maya had not just saved Hayes. She had potentially saved dozens of other operators. The intelligence officer returned within 5 minutes, his face pale. "General, you need to see this." Now, Kincaid excused himself and stepped outside with the officer and 2 colonels. Through the door, Maya could hear urgent, hushed conversation. Words like actionable and asset and immediate authorization floated back. Reeves moved closer to her chair. "You got lucky, Chun, but luck runs out." Maya kept her voice level. "This was never about luck, Master Chief. It was about doing the job. The job is following orders. No, the job is bringing people home. Orders are just a map. Sometimes you have to go off-road." Reeves leaned down, his voice dropping. "You think saving Hayes makes you one of us? You think one good day erases the fact that you do not belong here? Women weaken teams. They make men hesitate. They get people killed." Maya finally looked at him directly. "Is that what happened to you, Master Chief? Someone hesitated because of a woman and you lost people?" His face went hard as granite. "You do not know anything about what I have lost. I know you were so afraid of it happening again that you would rather abandon a living operator than risk another rescue. I know that makes you a coward." Reeves' hand shot out and grabbed her collar, yanking her out of the chair. His face was inches from hers, rage boiling behind his eyes. "You just ended your career, Staff Sergeant." The door opened. General Kincaid stood in the doorway, taking in the scene. Master Chief Reeves released that Marine immediately. Reeves let go and stepped back, his chest heaving. "Sir, she just called me a coward." Kincaid walked back to his position at the head of the table. "I heard her. I also heard you tell her she does not belong in special operations because of her gender. That is a violation of about 6 different regulations, Master Chief. So perhaps we are even." Reeves went rigid. "Sir, I was simply expressing the reality of combat effectiveness. You were expressing prejudice. There is a difference." Kincaid sat down and folded his hands. "The intelligence staff Sergeant Chun recovered has already been verified. It identifies the location of a high-value target we have been hunting for 8 months. Because of her actions today, we can launch an operation within 48 hours that will likely save American lives." One of the colonels added, "Commander Hayes has also regained consciousness." His statement confirms that Staff Sergeant Chin acted in accordance with his intent and possibly saved his life through immediate and effective trauma care under fire. General Kincaid looked at Maya. "Staff Sergeant, you put me in an impossible position. By the book, you disobeyed orders. By any measure of military effectiveness, you succeeded where others failed. How do I reconcile that?" Maya thought carefully before answering. "Sir, I cannot tell you how to reconcile it. I can only tell you that I would make the same choice again. Every time." Kincaid almost smiled. "That is what concerns me, Staff Sergeant. You're willing to sacrifice your career for what you believe is right. That makes you either a hero or a liability, and I have not decided which yet." Reeves spoke again, calmer now, but no less intense. "Sir, regardless of the outcome, she violated the chain of command. If we do not enforce consequences, we set a precedent that undermines discipline across the force." "You are right, Master Chief." Kincaid stood, "which is why I am referring this matter to a formal review board. Staff Sergeant Chun will remain on base, restricted to non-combat duties, pending their decision. She is not under arrest, but she is also not cleared for operations." Maya felt the weight settle on her shoulders. "How long will the review take, sir?" "These things move slowly. Weeks, possibly months." Kincaid looked at her with something that might have been respect. "In the meantime, I suggest you think very carefully about whether special operations is really where you want to be. Because if you are cleared, you will be working alongside people who may not trust you. And if you're not cleared, you will have thrown away a promising career for one moment of insubordination." "It was not one moment, sir. It was 8 years in the making." Kincaid nodded slowly. "Dismissed, Staff Sergeant." Maya stood, saluted, and walked out of the conference room. The hallway was empty except for Vickers, who had been waiting outside. He fell in a step beside her without speaking. They walked through the base in silence, past operators preparing for missions, past armories and briefing rooms, and all the infrastructure of modern warfare. Maya had fought so hard to be part of this world. Now she might lose it all because she had actually lived up to its values. Vickers finally spoke when they were outside. Scuttlebutt says the intelligence you brought back is huge, bigger than anyone expected. Does it matter? I still disobeyed orders. It matters to Hayes. He is already working connections, calling in favors. Apparently, he is not willing to let you go down for saving his life. Maya stopped walking. He should not do that. It will just make enemies for both of us. Vickers smiled. Too late. He started making calls from his hospital bed about an hour ago. Half the SEAL community knows what happened. Some of them are pissed. Some of them are impressed. All of them are talking. Great. So I'm famous for all the wrong reasons. Or all the right reasons, depending on who you ask. They reached Maya's quarters, a small room she shared with another Marine who was currently deployed. She sat on her bunk and started removing her gear, the familiar ritual suddenly feeling hollow. This might be the last time she wore this equipment. The last time she was part of something larger than herself. Vickers leaned against the doorframe. For what it is worth, I think you did the right thing. And I'm not the only one. Half the guys on the team have been talking about how they would have made the same call if they had the guts. But they did not make the call. They followed Reeves back to the rally point. Because they trust the chain of command. You trust something bigger. Maya pulled off her boots. What I trust is that leaving people behind is wrong. Everything else is just noise. Vickers pushed off the doorframe. Get some rest, Staff Sergeant. Tomorrow starts your purgatory. Might as well face it with a clear head. He left, and Maya was alone with the weight of what she had done. She had saved Hayes, recovered critical intelligence, proven that her skills matched any operator in the field, and she might lose everything because of it. She thought about her brother, about David's last moments in that Kandahar marketplace, about the choice someone had made to leave him behind, about the promise she had made to herself that she would never be that person. The cost of keeping that promise was higher than she had expected. But looking at her reflection in the small mirror on the wall, seeing the exhaustion and the dried blood and the determination still burning in her eyes, she knew she would pay it. Some promises were worth everything. The next 3 days passed in a fog of routine and isolation. Maya reported for non-combat duties at 0600 each morning. Inventory checks in the armory. Equipment maintenance logs. Paperwork that had been ignored for months. Tasks designed to keep her busy and out of sight while the command structure decided her fate. Other operators avoided her in the chow hall. Not overtly hostile, just carefully neutral. Nobody wanted to be seen supporting someone under review for insubordination. Careers could be damaged by association. Vickers remained the exception. He sat across from her at breakfast on the 4th morning, his tray loaded with scrambled eggs and toast. Heard anything from the review board? Maya pushed food around her plate. Radio silence. Apparently, they are still gathering statements from everyone who was on the mission. That'd take weeks. Every operator, every support element, every chain of command link. Vickers took a bite of toast. Hayes got out of surgery yesterday. They rebuilt his femur with hardware. He will walk again, but probably never run like he used to. The guilt hit Maya fresh. She had saved his life, but ended his operational career. SEALs who could not run, could not ruck, could not keep up with the physical demands found themselves pushed to training roles or administration. Hayes was 41. This injury would likely be his exit from the teams. He left her a message. Vickers continued. Said to tell you thank you and not to let the bastards grind you down. Maya almost smiled. Sounds like him. The mess hall door opened and Master Chief Reeves walked in with 3 other senior enlisted SEALs. The temperature in the room shifted immediately. Conversations lowered. People focused on their food. Reeves scanned the space, found Maya, and held her gaze for a long moment before moving to get his breakfast. Vickers kept his voice low. He has been building his case, interviewing everyone who will talk to him about your performance over the past 18 months. Looking for patterns of recklessness or poor judgment. Will he find any? You tell me. Have you been reckless? Maya thought about the mission she had volunteered for, the high-risk shots she had taken, the positions she had held while others fell back. I have been aggressive. Whether that is reckless depends on who is evaluating it. Reeves sat 3 tables away, positioned so he could watch Maya without appearing to. His companions were older SEALs, the kind who had been in the teams since before women were even allowed in combat roles. They spoke in low tones, occasionally glancing in her direction. Vickers followed her gaze. Old guard versus new reality. They see you as the first crack in a dam they have been trying to hold back for decades. I'm not trying to prove anything about gender. I'm just trying to do my job. Your job is the proof. Every time you succeed, you make their arguments weaker. That is why Reeves wants you gone so badly. Maya stood and picked up her tray. I need to get to the armory. Inventory does not check itself. She walked out of the mess hall, feeling eyes on her back the entire way. The armory was housed in a climate-controlled building near the operations center. Inside, racks of weapons stood in precise rows. M4 carbines, M110 sniper rifles, sidearms, crew-served weapons. Everything maintained to exacting standards. The armorer, a grizzled staff sergeant named Kowalski, barely looked up when she entered. Chun, Rack 7 needs a full inspection and cleaning log. Some lieutenant thought he knew better than the manual, and now half the rifles are flagged. Maya moved to Rack 7 and began the methodical process of inspection. Field strip, examine each component, check for wear or damage, clean, reassemble, document. The repetitive nature was almost meditative. For a few hours, she could focus on something concrete instead of the uncertain future. She was halfway through the rack when the door opened. Lieutenant Commander Hayes stood in the doorway, leaning heavily on crutches. His left leg was in a brace from hip to ankle. His face was still pale, but his eyes were alert. Kowalski jumped to attention. Sir, you should be in medical. Hayes waved him off. I have been in medical for 4 days. I needed to see daylight and actual humans. He looked at Maya. Staff Sergeant Chun, can I borrow you for a few minutes? Maya glanced at Kowalski, who nodded reluctantly. She followed Hayes outside to a bench near the building. He lowered himself onto it with obvious pain, positioning his crutches beside him. They are telling me I will be medically retired within 6 months, Hayes said without preamble. The hardware in my leg is not compatible with operational requirements. I can walk, eventually run short distances, but I will never pass a SEAL physical fitness test again. Maya sat beside him. I am sorry, sir. Do not be. I have had a good run. 20 years in the teams, more deployments than I can count, more close calls than I deserve to survive. Getting old in this job is a privilege, not a right. He stretched his injured leg carefully. What I'm concerned about is you. Sir, you should not be spending political capital on my behalf. Too late. I have already called in every favor I have accumulated over 2 decades. You know what I found out? What? Reeves has been planning this for months. Long before our last mission. He has been documenting everything you do, building a case that you are temperamentally unsuited for special operations. Every aggressive decision you made, every risk you took, every time you pushed the envelope, he wrote it down. Maya felt cold. So the review board is not about one mission. It is about my entire record. Hayes nodded. He convinced himself months ago that you would eventually do something that would give him grounds for removal. Your rescue of me was just the opportunity he was waiting for. Then I gave him exactly what he wanted. You saved my life. That is not ammunition for his case. That is evidence against it. Is it? Or did I prove his point that I cannot be trusted to follow orders when it matters? Hayes turned to look at her directly. Maya, I have commanded special operations teams in 4 different theaters. I have worked with hundreds of operators. You are in the top 5% for tactical skill and in the top 1% for raw determination. Reeves is not trying to remove you because you are incompetent. He is trying to remove you because you scare him. I do not understand. You represent change. You prove that the old assumptions about who can do this job are wrong. If you succeed, if you prove that women can operate at the highest levels, then everything Reeves built his identity on becomes questionable. His whole career is based on the idea that the teams are for a certain type of person. You do not fit that type, and yet you excel. That is terrifying to someone like him. So what do I do? Hayes pulled a folder from inside his jacket. This is the after-action report I submitted to General Kincaid. It details everything that happened during our mission, including several things you do not know about. Like what? Like the fact that Reeves had intelligence suggesting our mission was compromised before we ever left base. He pushed forward anyway, because pulling back would have looked weak. Like the fact that his thermal imaging did show you as a heat signature, but he deliberately misreported it because he wanted to force the mission aboard. Like the fact that the hard drive you recovered contains evidence of ongoing operations that Reeves knew about and did not report through proper channels. Maya stared at him. You're saying Reeves is dirty? I am saying Reeves has been operating in moral gray areas for years, and nobody has called him on it, because he gets results. But this time he made it personal. He tried to use you as a scapegoat for his own failures. That gives us leverage. Us? Hayes handed her the folder. Read this. Memorize it. When you go before the review board, you need to understand that this is not about whether you followed orders. It is about whether the teams are going to evolve or calcify. You're the test case. Maya opened the folder and scanned the contents. Hayes had documented everything with timestamps, radio transcripts, and supporting evidence. It was a complete dismantling of Reeves' version of events. But it was also a declaration of war against a Master Chief with 26 years of connections and influence. Sir, if you submit this, Reeves will come after you too. He already is. He has been telling anyone who will listen that my judgment is compromised because you saved my life, that I am defending you out of misplaced gratitude rather than objective assessment. Hayes smiled grimly. Let him say it. Every word makes him look smaller. The door to the operations center opened, and Reeves himself emerged, flanked by two other senior SEALs. He saw Hayes and Maya on the bench, and his expression darkened. He walked directly toward them. Hayes struggled to his feet, refusing Maya's offered hand. He met Reeves standing, even if it was on crutches. Commander Hayes, Reeves said formally, glad to see you are recovering. I was just coming to check on your progress. I am sure you were, Master Chief. Hayes kept his tone neutral. Reeves looked at Maya. Staff Sergeant, I did not realize you were cleared for meetings with command staff during your restriction period. I am cleared for conversations with my commanding officer, Master Chief. That has never been restricted. Reeves' jaw tightened. Your commanding officer is medically unfit for duty and will be transferred to a training command within a month. Perhaps you should focus on finding a new chain of command that actually wants you. Hayes stepped forward, his crutch planted firmly. Master Chief Reeves, until I am officially relieved of command, Staff Sergeant Chun remains under my authority. And I want her exactly where she is, doing exactly what she has been doing, which is proving that excellence has no gender. The silence stretched. Other operators had noticed the confrontation and were watching from a distance. This was no longer a private dispute. This was becoming a public test of wills between two leaders with fundamentally different visions of what the team should be. Reeves spoke carefully, aware of the audience. Sir, with all due respect, your judgment may be compromised by recent events. The review board will make the determination about Staff Sergeant Chin's future, not personal feelings. You are right about one thing, Master Chief. The review board will decide. Hayes tapped the folder in Maya's hands, and they will have all the facts, every single one. Reeves' eyes flicked to the folder, then back to Hayes. I look forward to their decision, sir. So do I, Master Chief. So do I. Reeves walked away, his companions following. But Maya could see the tension in his shoulders, the controlled anger in his stride. Hayes had just escalated the conflict from a personnel matter to something much more serious. Hayes lowered himself back onto the bench, breathing hard from the effort of standing. That went about as well as I expected. Sir, you just made yourself a target. I've been a target before. The difference is this time I am choosing the fight. Hayes looked at the operations center where Reeves had disappeared. 20 years ago, I would have been on his side. I would have agreed that women had no place in special operations. But I have learned something in 2 decades of war. Courage does not care about chromosomes. Skill does not care about gender. And loyalty, real loyalty, is so rare that when you find it, You do not question where it comes from. You honor it. Maya felt her throat tighten. Thank you, sir. Do not thank me yet. We still have to win this fight. And Reeves plays dirty. The summons came at 04:30, 2 weeks after Maya's conversation with Hayes. A sharp knock on her door jolted her awake. When she opened it, a stone-faced MP handed her orders to report to the JAG office immediately. No explanation. No time to prepare. She dressed in her service uniform, the one she kept pressed for formal occasions. If this was the review board, she would face it looking like the Marine she was. But when she arrived at the JAG building, she was directed to a small conference room in the basement. Not the main hearing room. Somewhere private. Inside sat a Navy commander she did not recognize, a Marine Corps lawyer, and a civilian in an expensive suit. No sign of General Kincaid or the review board members. The civilian gestured to a chair. Staff Sergeant Chun, I am Robert Garrison from the Defense Department Inspector General's office. We need to talk about Master Chief Dalton Reeves. Maya sat slowly, her mind racing. This was not the review board. This was something else entirely. The Navy commander spoke next. What we are about to discuss is classified at the top secret level. You will not repeat any of this conversation to anyone, including Commander Hayes, without explicit authorization. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Garrison opened a tablet and turned it toward her. On the screen was a photograph of Reeves meeting with a man in civilian clothes outside a cafe in Istanbul. The timestamp showed it was taken 6 months ago, during what should have been a training rotation. Do you recognize the other man in this photo? No, sir. His name is Dmitry Volkov. He is a Russian intelligence officer specializing in recruiting assets within NATO's special operations units. Garrison swiped to another photo, this one showing money changing hands. Master Chief Reeves has been in contact with Volkov for approximately 8 months. Maya felt the floor drop out from under her. Reeves is selling intelligence to the Russians? We do not have enough evidence yet to prove espionage. What we do have is evidence of unauthorized contact with a foreign intelligence officer, unexplained financial deposits, and a pattern of operational decisions that seem designed to compromise missions without being obvious about it. The Marine lawyer leaned forward. Your rescue of Commander Hayes disrupted something, Staff Sergeant. The intelligence on that hard drive was not just about a high-value target. It contained evidence of a penetration in our special operations network. Someone has been feeding information to the enemy. Hayes was getting close to identifying who. That is why the mission was compromised, Maya said, pieces falling into place. Reeves knew Hayes suspected something. He needed Hayes eliminated. We believe so, but we cannot prove it yet. Garrison closed the tablet, which is where you come in. Maya looked between the three of them. What do you need from me? The Navy commander answered. The review board hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Reeves will be there, along with several officers he has cultivated as allies. He is expecting to destroy your career and discredit Hayes in the process. What he is not expecting is for this to become an investigation into his own conduct. You want me to accuse him during the hearing? No. Garrison's tone was sharp. We want you to say nothing about any of this. We need Reeves to feel secure, to believe he has won. Meanwhile, we will be watching his communications, his movements, his contacts. Give him enough rope to hang himself. Maya understood what they were asking. Let yourself be sacrificed so we can catch a bigger fish. The Marine lawyer spoke gently. Staff Sergeant, I know this is not what you wanted to hear. But if Reeves is passing intelligence to the Russians, he has already gotten Americans killed. Stopping him is more important than any one career, even if that career is mine. Even then, Maya thought about her brother, about the promise she had made. She had fought so hard to prove herself, to earn her place, to show that she belonged. And now, these people were asking her to throw it all away on the chance that it might expose a traitor. What happens to me after the hearing? Garrison met her eyes. If you do what we are asking, Reeves will likely succeed in having you removed from special operations. You will be transferred, possibly face disciplinary action, maybe be pushed out of the Marines entirely. Your record will show a pattern of insubordination and poor judgment. And if I refuse, if I fight back with what Hayes documented, then Reeves will know we are investigating him. He will shut down his communications, cover his tracks, possibly flee. We will lose our chance to identify his handlers, his network, everyone he has compromised. The investigation will collapse. The Navy commander added, "We are asking you to trust that justice will come eventually. Just not immediately, and maybe not in a way that clears your name." Maya stood and walked to the window. Outside, the base was coming to life. Operators preparing for morning PT. Crews running maintenance on helicopters. The machinery of war turning like it always did. Somewhere in that machinery was a traitor who had sent good people to their deaths for money. "How long?" she asked. "How long do I have to wait?" "Months. Possibly longer. We need to build an airtight case. And in the meantime, I lose everything I have worked for." Garrison's voice softened. "Yes. I am sorry, but yes." Maya turned back to face them. "Does Hayes know about this?" "No. And he cannot. If he knows, he will try to protect you. That will complicate the investigation. So I have to face tomorrow alone. Let Reeves destroy me. Say nothing in my own defense." The Marine lawyer nodded. "We know what we are asking. It is not fair and it is not right. But it is necessary." Maya returned to her chair and sat in silence for a long moment. She thought about David, about the choice someone had made to leave him behind, about how that choice had shaped everything that came after, about the promise she had made to never be that person. But this was different. This was not about abandoning someone. This was about taking a bullet so others could complete the mission. It was the oldest military tradition there was. "If I do this," she said quietly, "I need a guarantee. When this is over, when you have what you need, my record gets cleared. Completely." Garrison nodded. "You have my word. Once Reeves is in custody and the case is complete, we will ensure your record reflects the truth. You will be reinstated with full honors. And Hayes gets to know that I did not just give up. When the time is right, yes." Maya took a deep breath. "Then I will do it. But I need something from you first. Name it. I need to know this matters. That stopping Reeves will actually save lives." Garrison opened his tablet again and showed her a list of names. Operators killed in action over the past 8 months. 12 names. All from units that had worked with Reeves at some point. "We believe all of these deaths were preventable. Missions were compromised because Reeves fed intelligence to the enemy. These men died because someone sold them out." Maya recognized 3 of the names. She had trained with one of them at Fort Benning, had shared a flight with another on a deployment rotation. Good men, men with families and futures. "All right," she said, "I will do it." The Navy commander stood and extended his hand. "Thank you, Staff Sergeant. I know this is not what you signed up for." Actually, Maya shook his hand. "It is exactly what I signed up for. I just thought the enemy would be more obvious." The meeting ended and Maya was escorted back to her quarters. She had 18 hours before the review board hearing. 18 hours to prepare herself for professional execution. 18 hours to make peace with losing everything. She spent the time writing letters. One to her parents, explaining that whatever they heard about her removal from the teams was not the whole story. One to Vickers, thanking him for being the one person who had not treated her differently. And one to Hayes, sealed and dated, to be opened only after Reeves was arrested. In the letter to Hayes, she wrote the truth. About the investigation, about her choice, about why she had to let him think she had given up. She wrote that she had learned from him what real leadership looked like. That she hoped he understood why she could not tell him before the hearing. When she finished, she sealed the envelope and addressed it to the Inspector General's office with instructions for delivery. Then she lay on her bunk and stared at the ceiling, trying to memorize what it felt like to be a Marine before she had to pretend to stop being one. Sleep did not come. At 0300, she gave up trying and went to the gym. The weight room was empty at that hour. She ran through her usual routine, pushing herself harder than necessary. The physical pain was a welcome distraction from the emotional weight. Vickers found her there at 0500, drenched in sweat and working through her 3rd set of pull-ups. He leaned against the wall and waited until she dropped from the bar. "Heard the review board is today." Maya grabbed her towel. "Yeah, this afternoon. How are you feeling?" Honest answer or the one I'm supposed to give? Honest. Maya sat on a bench and took a long drink from her water bottle. I feel like I have spent 8 years trying to prove I belong somewhere that does not want me. And today I find out if it was all for nothing. Vickers sat beside her. For what it is worth, I think you belong. So do a lot of other guys. We just do not say it, because Reeves makes life hell for anyone who supports you. I know. I do not blame you for staying quiet. Maybe you should. Maybe we all should have said something earlier. Before it came to this, they sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Vickers spoke again. Whatever happens today, you prove something important. You prove that courage is not about following orders. Sometimes it is about knowing when to break them. Maya smiled sadly. Try putting that on an evaluation report. Fair point. He stood. I will be there today. At the hearing. Even if I cannot testify on your behalf, I can at least be a friendly face in the room. Thank you. He left, and Maya finished her workout. By 0700 she was showered, dressed in her service uniform, and ready. The hearing was scheduled for 1400 hours. 7 hours to wait. She spent them walking the base, memorizing details. The way morning light hit the operations center. The sound of helicopters warming up on the flight line. The smell of the armory. All the small things that had become familiar over 18 months. At 13:30, she reported to the hearing room. It was larger than she expected, set up like a courtroom with a panel of officers at the front and rows of chairs for witnesses. Reeves sat on one side with his lawyer and 3 character witnesses, all senior SEALs who had worked with him for years. Hayes was there too, in his dress uniform, crutches leaning against his chair. He caught her eye and nodded. She looked away quickly, afraid he would see the truth in her face. General Kincaid entered at precisely 1400 hours. Everyone stood. This is a formal review board to determine the disposition of charges against Staff Sergeant Maya Chun, United States Marine Corps. Be seated. General Kincaid opened the folder before him and began reading the charges. Staff Sergeant Maya Chun is charged with willful disobedience of a lawful order, unauthorized engagement with hostile forces, and reckless endangerment of personnel. Master Chief Reeves, you may present your case. Reeves stood, his uniform immaculate, his bearing that a man who had spent 26 years earning respect through blood and sacrifice. General, on the 15th of last month, during a combat operation in hostile territory, I gave Staff Sergeant Chun a direct order to fall back to the rally point and abort the rescue attempt for Lieutenant Commander Hayes, who I had assessed as killed in action based on thermal imaging and blast radius analysis. He pulled up a tactical display on the screen. Staff Sergeant Chun refused this order and instead pursued a solo infiltration into enemy-controlled territory. Her actions directly violated operational protocol and placed additional assets at risk when we were forced to authorize extraction under fire. One of the panel members, a Marine colonel named Harrison, spoke up. Master Chief, your report states that thermal imaging showed no heat signature at Commander Hayes' last known position. Is that correct? That is correct, sir. Our equipment indicated no living personnel in the target area. Yet Staff Sergeant Chun visually confirmed that Commander Hayes was alive and mobile. Reeves' jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Sir, in the chaos of combat, it is possible to misinterpret movement. Debris shifting, enemy combatants searching the area, various factors could create the impression of friendly movement. But she was correct. Hayes was alive. In this instance, yes. But the decision to pursue was still reckless, because she could not have known that with certainty at the time she disobeyed my order. Kincaid made a note. Continue, Master Chief. Reeves spent the next 20 minutes building his case. He presented testimony from 3 SEALs who stated that Maya had a pattern of taking unnecessary risks. He showed after-action reports where she had advocated for aggressive tactics that senior leadership had overruled. He painted a picture of someone who consistently prioritized personal glory over team safety. Maya sat through it all in silence, watching Hayes' face grow increasingly tight with controlled anger. She wanted to tell him it was all right, that this was part of a larger plan, but she could not. She had to let Reeves believe he was winning. When Reeves finished, Kincaid turned to Maya. Staff Sergeant Chun, do you wish to present a defense? This was the moment. Maya could produce Hayes' folder, could expose the inconsistencies in Reeves' story, could fight back with evidence and logic and truth. She saw Hayes lean forward slightly, waiting for her to demolish Reeves' testimony. Instead, she stood and spoke calmly. "General, I do not dispute the facts as Master Chief Reeves has presented them. I did disobey his direct order. I did pursue Commander Hayes against explicit instructions to abort. I accept full responsibility for my actions." The room went silent. Hayes' expression shifted from expectation to confusion to something that looked like betrayal. Vickers, sitting in the back row, closed his eyes. Kincaid studied her carefully. "You're not offering any defense? No justification for your actions?" "Sir, I could argue that I believe Commander Hayes was alive and that a rescue was possible. I could claim that I was following my training to never leave a fallen comrade. But the truth is simpler. I made a choice to disobey an order because I disagreed with it. That is the definition of insubordination, regardless of the outcome." One of the panel members, a Navy captain, spoke. "Staff Sergeant, you understand that this admission likely ends your career in special operations?" "Yes, sir. I understand." Hayes struggled to his feet, grabbing his crutches. "General Kincaid, I request permission to speak." Kincaid nodded. "Commander Hayes, you may address the board." Hayes maneuvered to the front of the room, his injured leg making each step labored. "Sir, I have submitted a detailed report documenting the circumstances of that mission. Staff Sergeant Chen's actions saved my life and recovered critical intelligence. Her assessment of the tactical situation was correct where Master Chief Reeves was wrong." Reeves remained standing. "Sir, Commander Hayes' gratitude is understandable, but it does not change the fact that Staff Sergeant Chun violated the chain of command. If we excuse insubordination because it worked out well this time, we set a precedent that will undermine discipline across the force." Hayes turned to face him directly. "Master Chief, your thermal imaging failed. Your assessment was wrong. Your order would have resulted in my death and the loss of actionable intelligence. Those are facts." Reeves met his gaze without flinching. "Sir, with respect, you are emotionally compromised. Staff Sergeant Chun saved your life, and now you are unable to objectively evaluate her conduct. That is human nature, but it should not be the basis for overturning established military discipline." Kincaid held up a hand. "Gentlemen, that is enough." He looked at Maya. "Staff Sergeant Chun, let me be clear about what you are doing. You are refusing to defend yourself even though you have ground to do so. You are accepting career-ending consequences for actions that arguably saved American lives." "Why?" Maya chose her words carefully, knowing that Garrison and his team were probably monitoring this hearing. "Because the only defense I could offer would require me to claim that my judgment is better than my commanding officer's judgment. That is a dangerous precedent. We cannot have every junior enlisted deciding which orders they will follow based on their personal assessment of the situation." She could see Hayes' confusion deepening, could feel his stare burning into her. She kept her eyes on Kincaid. The general leaned back in his chair. "This is highly irregular. In my 30 years of service, I have never had a service member refuse to mount a defense when they had legitimate grounds to do so." The Marine colonel spoke again. "Staff Sergeant, off the record, what do you hope to accomplish here?" Maya met his eyes. "Sir, I hope to prove that I understand what service means. It is not about being right. It is about being part of something larger than yourself, even when that is hard, even when it costs you everything." Reeves' expression shifted slightly. He had expected a fight. He had prepared for Maya to come out swinging with Hayes' evidence, to turn this into a battle that would generate publicity and division. Instead, she was surrendering. He was getting exactly what he wanted with none of the complications. Kincaid closed his folder. "This board will recess for deliberation. We will reconvene in 1 hour with our decision." The panel stood and filed out. The room erupted in low conversation. Hayes immediately moved toward Maya, but she turned away, walking quickly toward the exit. She could not face him. Not yet. Not when she had to maintain the lie. Vickers intercepted her in the hallway. "What are you doing? You had everything you needed to fight this." Maya kept walking. "I am doing what I have to do." "That is not an answer. It is the only answer I can give you right now. Trust me, She pushed through the exit and into the harsh sunlight. Behind her, she heard Hayes calling her name, his voice sharp with confusion and anger. She did not stop. She could not. The hour passed in a blur. Maya sat alone in a supply room, staring at her hands. Hands that had pulled the trigger to eliminate threats. Hands that had provided medical care to a dying commander. Hands that had saved lives and taken them. Now those hands were about to lose the right to do either. When she returned to the hearing room, the panel was already seated. Kincaid waited until everyone was settled before speaking. This board has reached a decision. In the matter of willful disobedience of a lawful order, we find Staff Sergeant Maya Chen guilty. In the matter of unauthorized engagement with hostile forces, we find her guilty. In the matter of reckless endangerment of personnel, we find the evidence insufficient and dismiss that charge. He paused, letting the weight settle. Staff Sergeant Chen, you are hereby removed from Special Operations assignment and will be transferred to a conventional Marine unit. You will receive a letter of reprimand in your permanent record. You are reduced in rank to sergeant and will forfeit 1 month's pay. Maya stood at attention. Yes, sir. However, Kincaid continued, this board also recognizes that your actions, while insubordinate, did result in the successful recovery of a wounded operator and critical intelligence. Therefore, we are recommending you for the Bronze Star with V device for valor under fire. The room stirred. Reeves' face went dark. A punishment and a medal. It was the military's way of saying she had done something both wrong and right simultaneously. Kincaid met her eyes. Sergeant Shun, you have proven yourself to be an exceptional operator with questionable judgment regarding the chain of command. That makes you dangerous and valuable in equal measure. I hope you take this time in a conventional unit to reflect on the balance between courage and discipline. Maya saluted. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Dismissed. She walked out of the hearing room with her head high and her career in ruins. Behind her, she heard Reeves accepting congratulations from his allies. She heard Hayes trying to follow, his crutches slowing him down. She did not look back. Outside, the sun was setting. Her last day as a Special Operations Marine. Tomorrow she would begin processing for transfer. Within a week she would be gone from this base, assigned to some conventional unit where her skills would be wasted on routine patrols and checkpoint duty. But somewhere in a secure facility, Garrison and his team would be watching Reeves, monitoring his communications, waiting for him to make a mistake. And when he did, when they had enough evidence to move, Maya's sacrifice would mean something. She found a quiet spot behind the armory and finally let herself feel it. The loss, the betrayal of watching Reeves win, the pain of seeing Hayes' confusion. She had spent 8 years becoming someone worthy of the teams. 20 minutes to lose it all. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. 2 words. Well done. Garrison. He had been watching. He knew what it cost her to sit there and accept defeat without fighting back. The acknowledgement helped, but only slightly. Footsteps approached. She turned to find Hayes, his face flushed from the effort of navigating the base on crutches. He stopped a few feet away, breathing hard. I do not understand, he said. I gave you everything you needed to win. Why did you not use it? Maya met his eyes and lied to the man who had believed in her. Because you were wrong, sir. Reeves was right about me. I have been reckless. I have prioritized my own judgment over the chain of command. Today, I finally accepted that. That is garbage and you know it. Hayes moved closer. What is really happening here? Nothing. I made my choices and I am living with the consequences. You are lying. I have led men for 20 years. I know when someone is lying to protect something. Maya, turn away. I am not protecting anything. I'm just tired of fighting. Tired of trying to prove I belong somewhere that does not want me. Maybe Reeves is right. Maybe I do not have what it takes. Hayes grabbed her arm, forcing her to face him. The Maya, Chen I know does not give up. Ever. So either you're not who I thought you were, or something else is going on that you cannot tell me about. She pulled her arm free. I am exactly who you thought I was, sir. Someone who cannot follow orders when it matters. The board made the right call. She walked away before he could respond, before the tears could start, before she broke and told him everything. Behind her, Hayes called her name once more. She kept walking. The transfer orders came through 3 days later. Sergeant Maya Chan was being reassigned to 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines at Camp Pendleton, California, a conventional infantry unit conducting routine training rotations. As far from special operations as the Marine Corps could send her while keeping her in combat arms. She packed her gear in silence while other Marines moved past her door. Nobody stopped to say goodbye. Word had spread about the hearing, about her reduction in rank, about her removal from the teams. In the special operations community, failure was contagious. People kept their distance. Vickers appeared in her doorway on her last evening. He leaned against the frame, watching her fold uniforms into her duffel bag. "You're really not going to tell me what happened in there?" Maya continued packing. "There is nothing to tell. I made bad decisions, and I paid for them. You do not believe that any more than I do. What I believe does not matter anymore." He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. "I have known you for 18 months, Maya. I have seen you take shots that nobody else would attempt. I have watched you hold positions that should have been overrun. You do not give up. Ever. So either something broke inside you during that hearing, or you're playing a game I do not understand." Maya zipped her bag and faced him. "Maybe something did break. Maybe I finally realized I was fighting for something that was never going to happen. Women do not belong in special operations. Vickers. Reeves proved that. The board proved that. I was just too stubborn to see it. That is what Reeves wants everyone to believe. Then I guess he won." Vickers studied her face for a long moment. "When this is over, whatever this actually is, I hope you know you had people on your side. People who would have fought for you if you had let them. I know. Thank you for being one of them." He left without another word. Maya finished packing and spent her last night on base staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of operators preparing for missions she would never be part again. The flight to California felt like a funeral procession. Maya sat alone, her uniform drawing occasional glances from other passengers. A female Marine traveling solo, clearly military but not in a group. People made assumptions. She did not correct them. Camp Pendleton sprawled across the California coast, massive and bureaucratic compared to the tight-knit special operations bases she was used to. She reported to battalion headquarters and was processed like any other new arrival. Name, rank, military occupational specialty, assignment. The staff sergeant handling her paperwork barely looked up. Her new platoon commander was a first lieutenant named Marcus Webb, fresh from the basic school and eager to prove himself. He reviewed her file with visible confusion when she reported to his office. "Sergeant Shun, your record is unusual. Scout Sniper qualified, Jump certified, attachment to SEAL Team 7 for 18 months, Bronze Star with V device. Then a letter of reprimand for insubordination and reduction in rank." He looked up at her. "What am I supposed to do with you?" "Whatever the Marine Corps needs, sir." "That is not an answer." Webb, close the file. "You're either going to be an asset or a problem." "Which one?" "An asset, sir." "Good, because I have a platoon of young Marines who need training from someone who has actually seen combat. I do not care what happened to your last unit. I care whether you can do the job here." "I could do the job, sir." She was assigned to 2nd Squad as a team leader. 3 Marines under her direct supervision, all younger than her, all with exactly 0 combat experience. Lance Corporal Joshua Park, Private First Class Amanda Torres, and Private Kevin Sullivan. They stood at attention when she arrived at the squad bay, trying not to stare at the ribbons on her chest. Maya addressed them simply. "I am Sergeant Chun. I will be your team leader. You will follow my orders, maintain your equipment, and train like your life depends on it, because someday it will." "Questions?" Park raised his hand. "Sergeant, is it true you were Special Operations?" "I was attached to a Special Operations unit. Now I am here." Torres spoke next. "Why did you transfer?" "Because I was ordered to." "Any other questions?" Sullivan, the youngest, looked nervous. "Sergeant, we heard you got in trouble for disobeying orders. Are you going to teach us to do that?" Maya looked at him directly. "I'm going to teach you to follow orders, to stay alive, and to bring each other home. Everything else is noise. Understood?" "Yes, Sergeant." The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm. Morning PT, weapons training, tactical drills, endless repetition of basics that Maya could do in her sleep. She trained her team with the intensity she had learned in special operations, pushing them harder than other team leaders pushed their Marines. Lieutenant Webb pulled her aside after 2 weeks. Sergeant Shun, I appreciate your dedication, but you are burning out your team. Torres threw up twice during your land navigation exercise yesterday. They need to be ready for anything, sir. They need to be ready for what we actually do, which is training rotations and security patrols, not special operations raids. Sir, with respect, you do not know what they will face. Neither do I, but I know that the Marines who train harder survive longer. Webb sighed. To style it back a little, I did not want injuries during peacetime training. Maya moderated her approach, but only slightly. She could not turn off what she had learned, could not pretend that mediocre was acceptable when excellence was possible. At night, alone in her quarters, she checked the encrypted email account Garrison had given her. Most days there was nothing. Occasionally, a single word, continue. It meant the investigation was ongoing. It meant her sacrifice was not yet complete. 6 weeks into her assignment, a new message appeared, development. Stand by. Maya deleted it immediately and tried to sleep. Whatever was happening with Reeves, she was not part of it anymore. She was just a conventional Marine trying to train young warriors for a war that might never come. The call came at 0200 hours. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She answered carefully. Garrison's voice was tight. We have a problem. Reeves knows we are investigating him. He's about to run. How do you know? He liquidated 3 overseas accounts this morning and booked a flight to Turkey. We are moving up the arrest timeline. We need you back here. Maya sat up, suddenly awake. I'm not part of this anymore. I got transferred, remember? The transfer can be reversed once Reeves is in custody. But right now we need someone he trusts to make contact. Someone he thinks he beat. He does not trust me. He hates me. Exactly. Which is why he will believe you if you reach out claiming you have information he needs. What information? Tell him you discovered evidence that Hayes is building a case for your reinstatement. Tell him you want revenge and you are willing to provide details about Hayes' investigation into operational security breaches. Reeves will not be able to resist the chance to both stop Hayes and compromise you further. You want me to pose as a traitor. We want you to give Reeves enough rope to hang himself. One recorded conversation where he admits to selling intelligence, and we have him. Maya stood and started dressing. When do you need me? Yesterday. There is a flight from San Diego at 0600. You will be on it. We will brief you in detail when you land. What do I tell my commander? We have already handled it. As far as Lieutenant Webb knows, you have been recalled for testimony in an ongoing investigation. He will not ask questions. Maya grabbed her go bag, already packed from habit. What if this goes wrong? What if Reeves smells the trap? Then you will be the only person in the room with a master manipulator who has already killed 12 Americans. So try not to let it go wrong. The line went dead. Maya finished dressing and headed for the base motor pool to requisition a vehicle. 6 weeks of anonymity were over. She was being pulled back into the fire. The flight to Iraq was long enough for Maya to second-guess everything. She was walking into a meeting with a man who had dedicated months to destroying her career. A man who might be a Russian asset. A man with nothing left to lose if he suspected this was a setup. Garrison met her at the airfield with 2 FBI agents she did not recognize. They drove directly to a safe house on the outskirts of the base, away from prying eyes. Inside, Garrison laid out the plan. You will contact Reeves through an encrypted message app. Tell him you need to meet in person to discuss sensitive information about Hayes. Suggest a location off base, somewhere public, but not too public. A cafe in a local town where Americans sometimes go. He will be suspicious. Of course he will. But he is also desperate. We froze his accounts an hour ago. He knows we are closing in. If you offer him intelligence that could compromise our investigation, he will take the meeting just to assess whether you are legitimate. And if he decides I am not, one of the FBI agents, a woman named Cardona, answered. You will be wired. We will have teams positioned within 30 seconds of your location. If anything goes sideways, we extract you immediately. Maya looked at the message draft they had prepared. It was convincing, hitting all the right notes of bitterness and desperation. but it also put her in a room with a man who had proven he was willing to kill to protect his secrets. What about Hayes? Does he know about this? Garrison shook his head. Hayes is still in the dark. He has been asking questions, trying to figure out what happened with your hearing. We have kept him contained, but it is getting harder. After this is done, after you have Reeves, Hayes deserves to know the truth. He will know. But first we need to close this case. Maya read the message one more time, memorizing every word. Then she pulled out her phone and typed it exactly as written. The message showed as delivered. Now, they waited to see if Reeves would take the bait. The response came within 10 minutes. One word. Where? Garrison smiled without humor. He is scared and desperate. Perfect combination for making mistakes. They arranged the meeting for the following evening at a cafe frequented by contractors and off-duty soldiers. Neutral ground, where an American meeting another American would not attract unusual attention. Maya spent the intervening hours being fitted with a wire, so small she could barely feel it. Cardona coached her on what to say, how to lead Reeves into admitting his crimes without being obvious about it. You need to make him feel superior, Cardona explained. Let him think he won. People love to gloat about their victories, especially to someone they have beaten. The sun was setting when Maya entered the cafe. Reeves was already there, sitting in a back corner with clear sight lines to both entrances. Old habit from decades in special operations. Always know your exits. He watched her approach, his expression unreadable. Sergeant Shun, I was surprised to get your message. Maya sat across from him, keeping her hands visible on the table. Master Chief, thank you for meeting with me. You said you had information about Commander Hayes. I am listening. Reeves leaned back, studying her. You want revenge on the man who could not save you from yourself. That is very human, Sergeant, but it is also very stupid. Whatever you tell me about Hayes will not undo what you did. I'm not trying to undo anything. Maya kept her voice level. I'm trying to make sure Hayes does not destroy anyone else the way he destroyed me. Reeves signaled the waiter for coffee before responding. Hayes did not destroy you, Sergeant. You destroyed yourself the moment you decided your judgment was better than mine. He is just the one who convinced you it was noble. Maya forced bitterness into her voice. He told me I was doing the right thing. That courage mattered more than orders. Then he let me take the fall alone while he kept his career. Reeves nodded slowly. That sounds like Hayes. Always the idealist when it cost him nothing. Did he ever tell you why he really wanted you on his team? No. Recruiting optics. The Navy needed to show they were serious about integrating women into special operations. Hayes volunteered to take you on because it made him look progressive. You were never about your skills, Sergeant. You were about his image. The words stung, even though Maya knew they were lies designed to manipulate her. She leaned forward slightly. That is why I am here, Master Chief. Hayes is building a case to get me reinstated. He thinks if he can prove you made errors during that mission, it will justify what I did and make him look like a hero for standing by me. Reeves' eyes narrowed. What kind of case? He has been reviewing operational logs, communication transcripts, equipment reports. He is claiming your thermal imaging was faulty and you knew it. That you deliberately called the abort to cover your own mistake. That is ridiculous. My equipment functioned perfectly. Did it? Maya kept her tone neutral. Because Hayes has testimony from the technical crew that your thermal system was flagged for calibration issues 3 days before the mission. Issues you signed off as acceptable. Reeves went very still. Where did you hear that? I still have friends on base. People who think what happened to me was wrong. They have been feeding me information. Why would they do that? Maya smiled coldly. Because they hate Hayes too. He has a reputation for throwing people under the bus to protect himself. I am just the latest casualty. Reeves sipped his coffee, thinking, even if Hayes builds this case, it will not change the review board's decision. You admitted guilt. That is on record. Unless new evidence proves I was following my commander's intent all along. That I was operating under orders Hayes gave before he lost consciousness. Orders you deliberately ignored because you wanted to prove women could not handle the pressure. You are suggesting I committed perjury. I am suggesting you and Hayes are playing politics with people's careers, and I am tired of being the chess piece. Maya paused, but I also know you are smarter than he is. Whatever game you are playing, you are 3 moves ahead. Reeves studied her face for a long moment. What exactly do you want from me, Sergeant? Information. Hayes is planning something bigger than just my reinstatement. He has been asking questions about operational security, about intelligence leaks, about missions that went wrong over the past year. He thinks there's a pattern. Maya watched Reeves' expression carefully. A flicker of something, concern or calculation, passed across his features before he controlled it. Hayes sees patterns everywhere. It is called paranoia. Maybe. Or maybe he is onto something. Maya lowered her voice. I do not care either way. I just want him stopped before he drags me back into this mess. Whatever he is investigating, I want to make sure my name stays out of it. Reeves leaned back, his coffee forgotten. You want me to help you bury evidence that might clear your name? That is an interesting position. My name is not getting cleared, Master Chief. We both know that. The review board's decision is final. But I can control whether Hayes uses me as a martyr for whatever crusade he is on. I can make sure his case falls apart before it starts, by providing me with details about his investigation. Exactly. Reeves was quiet for a long moment, weighing options. Then he spoke carefully. Hypothetically, if I were concerned about Hayes' investigation, what kind of information could you provide? This was it. The moment Garrison had prepared her for. Maya needed to make Reeves feel safe enough to incriminate himself without being obvious about it. Hayes has a list. Names, dates, operations that resulted in American casualties. He is looking for a common denominator. Someone who had access to operational planning across multiple units. That could be dozens of people. He has narrowed it down. There is a file on his personal laptop, encrypted, but not well. He thinks someone in the special operations community has been compromising missions, selling intelligence to the highest bidder. Reeves' face remained neutral, but his fingers tightened almost imperceptibly on his coffee cup. That is a serious accusation. Does he have proof? Not yet, but he has coincidences, patterns, and he has been reaching out to intelligence agencies, trying to get them interested in a formal investigation. Which agencies? Defense Intelligence, FBI, maybe others. I did not have all the details, but I know he met with someone from the Inspector General's office 2 weeks ago. Reeves set down his cup with deliberate care. You seem very well informed for someone who has been transferred to California. Like I said, I still have friends. People who think Hayes is dangerous. People who want to see him stopped. And you think I am the person to stop him. I think you are the person with the most to gain from making his investigation disappear. Whatever you did or did not do during that mission, you do not want Hayes digging through your operational history, looking for mistakes. Reeves smiled slightly. You are very direct, Sergeant. I do not have time for games anymore, Master Chief. Either you help me bury Hayes' investigation, or I walk out of here and let whatever happens happen. And what do you want in return for this information? Nothing. I just want Hayes to leave me alone. I want to serve out my time in peace and get out with my GI Bill intact. But if his investigation gains traction, I become relevant again. Witnesses get called. Testimonies get revisited. I want to be forgotten. Reeves considered this. You realize that if I were the kind of person Hayes thinks compromised those missions, I would be very dangerous to cross. I'm already crossed, Master Chief. My career is over. What else can anyone take from me? Your life. Maya met his eyes without flinching. Then I guess you need to decide whether I am more useful alive and cooperative or dead and creating questions. The silence stretched. Somewhere in the cafe, dishes clattered. A group of contractors laughed at the bar. Normal sounds in an abnormal conversation. Finally, Reeves leaned forward. Hypothetically, if someone had been providing intelligence to interested parties, and if that someone wanted to ensure Hayes' investigation went nowhere, what specific information would be most useful? This was it. The admission Garrison needed. But Maya had to push further, had to get details that would hold up in court. I would need to know what operations Hayes is focused on. What missions he thinks are compromised. That way I can steer him away from the important ones and toward dead ends. Reeves pulled out his phone and scrolled through something. After a moment, he turned the screen toward Maya. These operations. If Hayes is smart, these are what he is looking at. Maya scanned the list. 8 missions over the past 14 months. All resulted in casualties. All had one thing in common. Reeves had been involved in the planning or execution. How do you know these are the ones? Because these are the ones that mattered. Reeves' voice was cold now, professional. These are the operations that generated the most valuable intelligence. Intelligence that certain interested parties were willing to pay premium rates to access. You are admitting you sold classified information. I am admitting nothing. We are speaking hypothetically. No, Master Chief. We are not. Maya stood and stepped back from the table. The cafe door opened and FBI agents in tactical gear flooded in. Reeves' hand went to his waist, but Cardona was already behind him, her weapon drawn. Hands on the table, Master Chief. Now, Reeves looked at Maya, his face transforming from confusion to fury to cold understanding. You were working with them the whole time. From the beginning, Maya said quietly. Every sacrifice, every humiliation, every moment you thought you had won. It was all to get to this moment. You destroyed your career for this? I saved it. You just did not know it yet. Cardona cuffed Reeves while other agents secured the cafe, evacuating civilians and establishing a perimeter. Reeves never took his eyes off Maya. You have no idea what you have done. The people I worked with, they do not forgive. They do not forget. You just painted a target on your back that will never disappear. Maya leaned down, so only he could hear. 12 Americans died because you sold them out. Whatever happens to me now, at least I can live with myself. Can you? Reeves smiled without humor. You are so naive. You think this ends with me? I was just one small piece of something much larger. And now that you have exposed me, now that you have shown them what you are capable of, they will come for you. Not today, maybe not this year, but eventually. And when they do, all your courage and all your principles will not save you. Then I guess I will deal with that when it comes. Just like I dealt with you. Cardona pulled Reeves to his feet. Master Chief Dalton Reeves, you are under arrest for espionage, conspiracy to commit murder, and treason. You have the right to remain silent. As they led him away, Reeves called back over his shoulder. Tell Hayes he was right. Tell him the pattern was real. And tell him it goes higher than he ever imagined. Then he was gone, disappeared into a vehicle surrounded by armed agents. Maya stood in the empty cafe, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Garrison appeared beside her. You did well. Better than I expected. Did I get enough? More than enough. His admission on the phone screen alone would be sufficient, but the verbal confirmation seals it. He is going away for the rest of his life. And the people he worked with? That is a longer investigation. But we have a starting point now. Maya sat down heavily. When do I get my life back? Garrison sat across from her. We need you to stay quiet for another few weeks while we process this. Make arrests of his contacts. Secure the evidence. After that, your record gets cleared and you can request reinstatement to Special Operations. Can I tell Hayes? Garrison hesitated. Hayes has been making noise, demanding answers, threatening to go to the press. We need to bring him in soon anyway. You should be the one to tell him. Where is he? Still at the base hospital. He refused medical retirement until he understood what happened to you. Maya felt her throat tighten. He should not have done that. He is loyal. That is what good commanders do. They do not abandon their people. Garrison stood. Come on, let me drive you to the hospital. The drive was silent. Maya rehearsed what she would say, how she would explain months of deception to a man who had trusted her completely. But when they arrived at Hayes' room, when she saw him sitting in a wheelchair by the window, his injured leg still braced, all the prepared words evaporated. He looked up and saw her. His expression cycled through surprise, relief, anger, and finally settled on cautious hope. Sergeant Shun, I was told you were recalled for testimony. He studied her face. But that is not the whole truth, is it? No, sir. It is not. Garrison cleared his throat. Commander Hayes, I am Robert Garrison from the Defense Department Inspector General's office. I think Sergeant Shun has something to tell you. Maya pulled a chair close to Hayes and sat. Then she told him everything. Hayes listened without interruption as Maya explained everything. The meeting with Garrison after the rescue. The choice to sacrifice her career. The months of waiting while the investigation built its case. The wire, the meeting, the arrest. When she finished, silence filled the hospital room. Finally, Hayes spoke, his voice tight with controlled emotion. You let me think you had given up. You let me believe I had failed you. I had to, sir. If you had known, you would have tried to stop it. You would have made noise that would have tipped off Reeves. So instead, you let me spend 3 months thinking I had broken you. That I had pushed you into special operations only to watch you get destroyed for doing exactly what I would have done. Maya met his eyes. I am sorry, but it was the only way. Hayes wheeled himself to the window, staring out at the base. Do you have any idea what these months have been like? Watching you accept defeat without fighting. Seeing the best operator I have ever worked with just surrender. I question everything. My judgment, my leadership, my entire career. I wrote you a letter. It is with the Inspector General's office, explaining everything. You were supposed to get it after Reeves was arrested. A letter. Hayes turned his wheelchair to face her. Maya, I have spent 20 years in the teams. I have lost people in combat. I have made calls that got good men killed. But watching you walk away from that hearing, believing you had given up on yourself, that was worse than any of it. Because I thought I had failed someone who trusted me. You did not fail me. You gave me the tools to survive this. The confidence to trust my own judgment, even when everyone was saying I was wrong. Garrison stepped forward. Commander Hayes, what Sergeant Chun did required extraordinary discipline and courage. She sacrificed her career, her reputation, everything she had worked for, to expose a traitor who had killed 12 Americans. Not many people could make that choice. Hayes looked at Maya, his expression softening. No, they could not. He wheeled closer. I am angry that you could not tell me, but I'm also proud of you. More proud than I can properly express. Maya felt tears threatening and fought them back. Thank you, sir. What happens now? Hayes asked Garrison. Now we clean up the mess. Reeves is in federal custody. We are currently rounding up his contacts, both domestic and foreign. The hard drive Sergeant Chun recovered has been invaluable in identifying the network he was part of. How far does it go? Garrison hesitated. Far enough that we need to be very careful about who knows what. Reeves was not exaggerating when he said this was bigger than him. We have identified at least 4 other personnel across different branches who may have been compromised. Names? That is classified above your clearance, Commander. But I can tell you that your instincts were correct. There was a pattern. Sergeant Chun helped us prove it. And her career? Hayes pressed. You promised her reinstatement. Her record will be cleared within the week. The letter of reprimand will be removed. Her rank will be restored. And she will be eligible to request reassignment to special operations if she wants it. If she wants it. Hayes looked at Maya. Do you want it? After everything they put you through? Maya thought carefully before answering. I want to serve where I can make the most difference. If that is special operations, then yes. But I also learned something during these months at Camp Pendleton. What is that? That being a good Marine is not about the assignment. It is about how you treat the people under your command. I had 3 young Marines who looked up to me, who trained harder because I demanded excellence. That mattered too. Hayes smiled. You sound like a leader. Maybe command is in your future. Maybe. But first I need to finish what we started. Garrison checked his phone. Speaking of which, we need Sergeant Chun for debriefing. There are details of her conversation with Reeves that need to be documented while they are fresh. Hayes extended his hand to Maya. Thank you for trusting the process, even when it meant not trusting me. Maya shook his hand. Thank you for believing in me, even when you thought I had stopped believing in myself. As Maya turned to leave, Hayes called after her. Maya, one more thing. Yes, sir? The review board decision. It still stands on paper until the paperwork goes through to reverse it, which means technically you are still reduced in rank and restricted from special operations. I know, sir. Which means you cannot be assigned to any classified operations or have access to sensitive material. That is correct. Good. Because I would hate for you to accidentally get involved in the raids we are planning against Reeves' network. That would be a violation of your current status. Garrison spoke up. Commander Hayes, we have strict protocols about who can participate in these operations. Hayes smiled. Of course you do. I am just making conversation. He looked at Maya. But hypothetically, if someone with Sergeant Chin's skills happen to be available once her paperwork clears, you might find her useful. We will keep that in mind, Commander. Maya followed Garrison out of the hospital and into a waiting vehicle. They drove to a secure facility on the far side of the base, a nondescript building that housed the FBI's Joint Task Force Operations Center. Inside, the walls were covered with photos, maps, and connection diagrams. Maya recognized Reeves' face at the center of a web that stretched across 3 continents. Names she did not recognize radiated outward. Some were military personnel, others were civilians, all connected by lines representing money, communication, or meetings. Cardona was waiting with a recording device. Sergeant Shun, we need you to walk us through every detail of your conversation with Reeves. Everything he said, how he said it, his body language, anything that might help us understand his network. Maya spent the next 4 hours reconstructing the meeting. Every word, every pause, every expression. The team asked questions, probed inconsistencies, built a timeline of admissions and implications. When they finally finished, Cardona leaned back in her chair. You did better than most trained undercover agents. Where did you learn interrogation techniques? I did not interrogate him. I just let him think he was smarter than me. People love feeling superior. It makes them careless. Garrison entered the room with coffee and sandwiches. We just got confirmation from NSA. They have been monitoring the accounts Reeves used for communication. In the past 6 hours, there has been a flurry of activity. His arrest has made someone very nervous. Who? We do not know yet. The communications are heavily encrypted, but the volume suggests panic. They're trying to cover tracks, move assets, protect themselves. Maya took a sandwich. When do you move on the others? 48 hours. We need to coordinate across multiple agencies and jurisdictions. But once we start, it will happen fast. 27 arrests in 12 different locations. You want me for any of it? Garrison shook his head. You have done your part. More than your part. Now you rest while we execute. Maya spent the next 2 days in a safe house with nothing to do but wait. The isolation was familiar after months of being sidelined, but now it felt different. Now she knew it was temporary. Now she knew there was a purpose. On the morning of the 3rd day, Garrison arrived with a thick envelope. Your reinstatement paperwork. Signed by General Kincaid personally. Rank restored to Staff Sergeant. Letter of reprimand expunged. Full clearance reinstated. As of 0800 this morning, you are officially back. Maya opened the envelope and read the orders. Everything Garrison had promised, made official. She was no longer Sergeant Shun, the failure who had been removed from Special Operations. She was Staff Sergeant Shun, the Marine who had helped expose a spy network. There's more, Garrison continued. The operations we planned for this morning were successful. All 27 targets were arrested without incident. We have seized documents, computers, communication devices. Enough evidence to put them away for life. Maya felt a weight lift. It is really over. This phase is over. The prosecutions will take years. But the immediate threat has been neutralized. And Reeves? In solitary confinement at a military detention facility. He has been trying to make deals, offering information in exchange for reduced sentences. So far, we have not needed anything he is offering. Will he go to trial? Eventually. But with the evidence we have, it is more likely he will plead guilty to avoid the death penalty. Either way, he will never see freedom again. Maya folded the orders and placed them back in the envelope. I want to go back to the teams. Not for revenge or vindication, because that is where I belong. Garrison smiled. Hayes has already put in a request for your reassignment to his new command. He is being moved to a training role, teaching the next generation of SEALs. He wants you as his senior instructor for Scout Sniper integration. Training, not operations. Not direct action, no, but shaping the future of how special operations works. Making sure what happened to you never happens to another woman who wants to serve at the highest level. Hayes thinks you're the right person for that mission. Maya considered it. 6 months ago, she would have seen training as a consolation prize. A lesser assignment for people who could not handle real operations. But now she understood what Hayes had been trying to teach her all along. The teams were not just about pulling triggers and completing missions. They were about building something that lasted. Tell Hayes I accept. When do I start? 2 weeks. Gives you time to process out of Camp Pendleton and report to your new duty station. Where? Coronado. Naval Special Warfare Center. You will be working directly with SEAL candidates, teaching them that excellence has no gender, no background, no prerequisites except dedication and skill. Maya stood and extended her hand. Thank you for trusting me with this. I know I was not the obvious choice. Garrison shook her hand firmly. You were exactly the right choice. You just did not know it yet. As Maya walked out of the safe house into the California sunshine, she pulled out her phone and called Vickers. He answered on the second ring. Staff Sergeant Chun, I heard rumors you were back in the land of the living. Something like that. Maya smiled. I need a favor. Name it. I need you to spread the word. To everyone who thought I gave up, everyone who thought I was not strong enough, everyone who believed Reeves when he said women do not belong in special operations. What do you want to tell them? Tell them I'm coming back. And this time, I'm bringing reinforcements. The Naval Special Warfare Center at Coronado sat on a narrow strip of land between San Diego Bay and the Pacific Ocean. Maya reported for duty on a Monday morning. Her service uniform pressed sharp, her ribbons perfectly aligned. The Bronze Star with V device sat prominently among them. But now it was joined by a classified citation for exceptional service that would never be fully explained. Commander Hayes met her at the headquarters building. He was walking with a cane now instead of crutches, his gait still uneven but functional. His dress uniform bore the insignia of his new role, officer in charge of advanced scout sniper training. Staff Sergeant Chun, welcome to Coronado. Hayes extended his hand. Ready to corrupt the next generation of SEALs with your dangerous ideas about merit over tradition? Maya shook his hand. Ready as I will ever be, sir. They walked through the compound, Hayes pointing out training facilities, ranges, and classrooms. The place hummed with activity. Candidates ran obstacle courses, weapons clattered at ranges, instructors shouted corrections and encouragement. Our mission here is simple, Hayes explained. We take candidates who have already proven themselves physically and mentally, and we teach them to think 3 steps ahead of the enemy. Scout snipers are not just shooters. They are intelligence gatherers, forward observers, the eyes of the command element. I know what scout snipers do, sir. I am one. Hayes smiled. True, but now you need to teach others to be what you are. That is a different skill set entirely. They reached a classroom where 15 SEAL candidates waited at attention. All men, all in their early 20s, all watching Maya with expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. Hayes addressed them. Gentlemen, this is Staff Sergeant Maya Chun, United States Marine Corps. She will be your primary instructor for advanced reconnaissance and precision fire. Some of you may have heard stories about her. Most of those stories are classified. What you need to know is this. She has more combat experience than everyone in this room combined, and she has forgotten more about scout sniper tactics than you will learn in the next 12 weeks. You will treat her with the respect her rank and experience deserve. Clear? Yes, sir. The candidates responded in unison. Hayes turned to Maya. They are all yours, Staff Sergeant. Maya stepped forward as Hayes left the room. She studied each candidate, letting the silence stretch. Finally, she spoke. My name is Staff Sergeant Chun. Over the next 12 weeks, I will teach you how to disappear, how to observe without being observed, and how to deliver precision fire from distances most people think are impossible. Some of you will excel. Some of you will fail. That is how selection works. One candidate, a tall operator with ranger tabs, raised his hand. Staff Sergeant, with respect, we have all completed basic underwater demolition SEAL training. We know how to handle pressure. Maya walked over to him. Your name? Petty Officer 2nd Class Marcus Webb, Staff Sergeant. Webb. Maya recognized the surname. Any relation to Lieutenant Marcus Webb, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines? My brother, Staff Sergeant. Small world. Your brother is a good officer. She stepped back to address the full class. Petty Officer Webb is right. You have all proven yourselves physically. But what we do here is different. This is not about how fast you run or how many pull-ups you can do. This is about patience, discipline, the ability to lie in your own filth for 36 hours waiting for a shot that may never come. Another candidate spoke up. Staff Sergeant, we heard you were removed from Special Operations and then reinstated. What happened? Maya, consider how to answer. The full truth was classified. But these men deserve something. I was part of an investigation that required me to appear to have failed. I spent 3 months believing my career was over. 3 months working conventional assignments while people I cared about thought I had given up. It was the hardest thing I have ever done, and I have been shot at in 4 different countries. Why are you telling us this? Webb asked. Because you need to understand that success in special operations is not always obvious. Sometimes the right decision looks like failure. Sometimes doing your job means sacrificing everything people think defines success. If you cannot handle ambiguity, if you need clear victories and public recognition, you will not survive in this community. The candidates absorbed this. Maya could see the mental recalibration happening. They had expected a standard instructor teaching standard techniques. Instead, they were getting someone who spoke about sacrifice and ambiguity. Over the next 4 weeks, Maya pushed the candidates harder than they had ever been pushed outside of BUD/S. She taught them to read terrain like a language, to estimate range using nothing but their eyes, to control their breathing until their heartbeat slowed to the point where they could shoot between pulses. She took them into the field for 72-hour observation exercises where they lay in hides watching simulated enemy positions, cataloging every movement, every pattern, every vulnerability. Several candidates quit during the first week. The physical demands were manageable. The mental demands broke them. Webb proved to be one of the strongest. He had the patience Maya demanded and the analytical mind to process complex tactical situations. But he also had something else. He asked questions that challenged assumptions. During a classroom session on target identification, he raised his hand. Staff Sergeant, the manual says we should always confirm hostile intent before engaging. But in practice, how do you make that call when you have 0.3 seconds to decide? Maya appreciated the question. The manual gives you the legal framework. Your training gives you the pattern recognition to make fast decisions. But sometimes you still get it wrong. Sometimes the person you think is a combatant is a civilian. Sometimes the threat you miss kills your teammates. That is the burden we carry. How do you live with getting it wrong? You do not forget. You learn from it. You make yourself better so the next decision is more likely to be right. She paused, but you never stop questioning yourself. The moment you become certain, the moment you think you have all the answers, you become dangerous to the people who depend on you. Webb nodded slowly. Is that what happened with Master Chief Reeves? The room went silent. The candidates knew pieces of the story, but not the full truth. Maya had avoided discussing Reeves directly, but Webb had just put on the table. Reeves stopped questioning himself. He became so certain that his way was the only way that he could not see alternatives. When reality contradicted his certainty, he manufactured new reality instead of adjusting his thinking. Another candidate asked, "Is that why he sold intelligence?" Maya shook her head. He sold intelligence because he valued money and personal security over the lives of the people he was supposed to protect. The certainty just made it easier for him to justify. Hayes appeared in the doorway. "Staff Sergeant Shun, can I see you for a moment?" Maya stepped into the hallway. Hayes handed her a folder. This just came through official channels. The trial date for Reeves has been set. 6 months from now. They want you to testify. About what specifically? Everything. The mission, the rescue, the meeting where you wore the wire. You're the linchpin witness. Maya opened the folder and scanned the subpoena. 6 months meant 6 more months of having this hanging over her. 6 months of preparing to face Reeves in court. Will you be there? Hayes nodded. As a witness and as support. We go through this together. The weeks continued. Maya's candidates gradually transformed from skilled operators into precision instruments. They learned to think like she thought, to see what she saw, to make decisions under impossible pressure. On the final day of training, she took them to the long-range shooting course. Targets at 800, 1,000, and 1,200 meters. Wind conditions deliberately variable. Each candidate had 1 shot at each distance. Webb went first. He took his time, reading the wind, adjusting his scope, controlling his breathing. The 800-meter target went down clean. The 1,000-meter target took 2 seconds longer, but also fell. At 1,200 meters, he held for nearly a minute before squeezing the trigger. The target dropped. Clean sweep. Maya nodded approval. Well done, petty officer. One by one, the candidates took their shots. Some hit all three. Some hit two. One candidate, a cocky operator who had questioned Maya's credentials in week 1, missed all three and was dropped from the program. When the exercise concluded, Maya gathered the remaining 12 candidates. You came here as individuals. You leave as scout snipers. You will deploy to teams around the world. Some of you will see combat. All of you will face decisions where lives hang in the balance. Remember what you learned here. Not just the technical skills, but the discipline to question yourself, the patience to wait for the right moment, and the courage to act when that moment arrives. Webb raised his hand one final time. Staff Sergeant, you taught us that success is not always obvious. What does success look like for you now? Maya thought about the question. 6 months ago, success would have meant getting back to operational status, proving herself in combat, earning respect through action. Now her definition had evolved. Success is standing in front of you 12 and knowing that when you deploy, you will be better prepared than I was. Success is changing a culture that said people like me did not belong here. Success is making sure the next woman who wants to serve at this level has an easier path than I did. One of the candidates spoke up. Staff Sergeant, are there other women in the pipeline? Not yet, but there will be. And when they arrive, you'll treat them the way you treated each other. With respect earned through performance, not prejudice based on assumptions. The candidates stood and saluted. Maya returned the salute, then watched them file out. 12 scout snipers who would carry what she taught them into teams around the world. 12 operators who now understood that excellence had nothing to do with gender or background or politics. Hayes entered the classroom. How does it feel? Like I finally understand what you have been trying to teach me. This matters as much as pulling the trigger. Maybe more. Hayes smiled. You are learning. He handed her another folder. Next class starts in 2 weeks. But this one is different. How so? Hayes opened the folder to show her the roster. 3 names. 3 female Marines who had passed Scout Sniper qualification and were being considered for SEAL support assignments. They're coming here. They're coming here. And you're going to make sure they are ready for everything this community will throw at them. Maya looked at the names. 3 women who would face the same skepticism, the same challenges, the same need to prove themselves every single day. But they would not face it alone. Where do I meet them? Tomorrow. They are arriving at 0600. Hayes paused. Maya, what you are building here, it is bigger than any single mission. You are changing the foundation of how we think about who belongs in special operations. I'm just doing my job, sir. No, you are creating the future. There is a difference. That night, Maya stood on the beach near the training compound, watching the sun set over the Pacific. Somewhere in a federal detention facility, Reeves was awaiting trial. Somewhere across the country, the families of 12 dead operators were getting justice. And somewhere in Marine training commands, 3 women were preparing to prove that they belonged in a world that had spent decades telling them they did not. Maya thought about her brother, about the promise she had made in grief and anger. She had kept that promise. She had proven that leaving people behind was never acceptable. And now, she was making sure that future generations understood the same lesson. The 3 female Marines arrived at 0600 exactly as scheduled. Staff Sergeant Elena Rodriguez from California, Sergeant Jasmine Washington from Georgia, and Sergeant Kai Nakamura from Hawaii. All Scout Sniper qualified. All recommended for advanced training by their commanders. All carrying the weight of representing every woman who would come after them. Maya met them at the training compound entrance. She saw herself in their faces 3 years ago. The determination mixed with uncertainty. The readiness to prove themselves against any standard. The knowledge that one mistake would be magnified while 10 successes would be dismissed as exceptions. Welcome to Coronado. Maya gestured for them to follow her. You are here because you earned it, not because of quotas or politics or optics. You outshot male candidates to get your Scout Sniper certification. You volunteered for the hardest assignments. You prove you belong here. Rodriguez spoke first. Staff Sergeant, we know about what happened to you. The hearing, the investigation, Master Chief Reeves. Everyone knows. Then you know this community can be hostile to change. You know there are people who will look for any excuse to say you do not belong. Maya stopped walking and faced them directly. You also know that excellence is the only argument that matters. You cannot debate someone into respecting you. You have to make it impossible for them to dismiss you. Washington asked, how do we do that when the standards keep shifting? When we hit one target and they move it further away. You hit the new target, then the next one, until they run out of targets to move. Maya resumed walking. But you also have something I did not have. You have each other, and you have instructors who have already fought this fight and won. They reached the training classroom where Hayes was waiting. He stood when they entered, leaning on his cane. Ladies, I am Commander Hayes. I run advanced training here. Staff Sergeant Chun has told me about each of you. Rodriguez, you set the record at Marine Scout Sniper School for longest confirmed training shot. Washington, you scored highest in your class on camouflage and concealment. Nakamura, your instructors say you have the best wind-reading ability they have seen in a decade. Nakamura looked surprised. You know our specific qualifications? Hayes smiled. I'm making my business to know who is coming through my program, especially when they are making history. He gestured to seats. Sit down. We need to talk about what you are really facing here. The women sat, and Maya took her place beside Hayes. Hayes continued, you're not here just to learn advanced tactics. You are here to prove that gender is irrelevant to operational effectiveness. That is an unfair burden, but it is reality. Every exercise you complete, every target you hit, every decision you make under pressure becomes evidence in a larger argument. Rodriguez frowned. That sounds like a lot of pressure, sir. It is. But pressure creates diamonds or dust. I believe you are diamonds. He pulled out 3 folders. These are your training curricula. 12 weeks of the most demanding reconnaissance and precision fire training in the world. You will be held to exactly the same standards as male candidates. Not lower, not higher. Identical. What happens if we fail? Washington asked. The same thing that happens to male candidates who fail. You are recycled through the program, or you return to your regular units. Hayes met each woman's eyes in turn. But I do not think any of you will fail. You have already succeeded against longer odds than anything we will throw at you here. Over the following weeks, Maya trained the 3 women with the same intensity she had brought to the male candidates. Longer, if anything, because she knew every eye in the special operations community was watching. They ran observation exercises in the desert, lying motionless in hides for days while instructors tried to spot them. They practiced long-range shots in variable wind conditions until they could read air currents like text. They studied enemy tactics, communication patterns, and vulnerability analysis until they could predict insurgent behavior. Rodriguez proved to be a natural leader, organizing the other 2 during team exercises. Washington had an almost supernatural ability to blend into any environment, becoming invisible even when instructors knew her approximate location. Nakamura's wind-reading skills were indeed exceptional, compensating for conditions that would have made shots impossible for lesser snipers. But the real test came during week 8, when Hayes introduced a scenario designed to break candidates mentally rather than physically. You are observing a compound, Hayes explained to the assembled candidates, now including 12 more male SEALs who had joined the course. You have been in position for 36 hours. You are exhausted, dehydrated, and your target has not appeared. Your extraction window is closing in 2 hours. Do you abort the mission or hold position? Webb, who had stayed on as an assistant instructor, raised his hand. Sir, what are the costs of aborting versus the value of completing the mission? Hayes smiled. Good question. Aborting means 6 months of intelligence work is wasted and the target likely escapes. Holding position means missing extraction and being stranded behind enemy lines with no support. Rodriguez spoke up. Staff Sergeant Chun, what would you do? Maya thought back to the mission that had changed everything. The decision to go after Hayes despite direct orders to abort. The calculation between risk and reward, duty and survival. I would evaluate whether I could complete the mission in the time remaining. If the target is definitely in the compound, I hold position and find another way out. If the intelligence is questionable, I abort and preserve the team for certain future missions rather than possible current ones. What if your commanding officer ordered you to abort? Nakamura asked. Then I would have to decide whether that order was lawful and whether the situation on the ground matched what command understands. Maya glanced at Hayes. Sometimes the person closest to the problem has information that changes the equation. Webb nodded. And sometimes you have to trust that command sees a bigger picture you do not. Both can be true, Hayes interjected, which is why judgment matters as much as skill. You can teach someone to shoot. Teaching them when to shoot is harder. The scenario exercise continued for 6 hours. Candidates were cycled through decision points, each designed to test not just their tactical knowledge, but their ability to think under pressure and uncertainty. All 3 female Marines performed exceptionally. They made decisions quickly, justified them clearly, and adapted when new information invalidated their initial assessments. That evening, Maya found Rodriguez sitting alone on the beach, staring at the ocean. "Everything okay, Rodriguez?" The sergeant looked up. "Can I ask you something personal, Staff Sergeant?" "Go ahead. Do you ever regret it? Pushing so hard to be in special operations when you could have had an easier career somewhere else." Maya sat beside her in the sand. "Every single day during those 3 months when I thought my career was over. Every time someone looked at me like I was a failure. Every moment I doubted whether it was worth it. But then I think about the 12 operators who died because Reeves sold them out. I think about the fact that if I had given up, if I had chosen the easier path, he would still be out there. And I think about you 3, about the women who will come after you, about changing a system that needs to change." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "My recruiter told me women would never be allowed in combat. My drill instructor said I would never make it through infantry school. My first platoon sergeant said I would never earn my scout sniper certification. They were all wrong, but I had to prove it every time. Welcome to being a pioneer. It is exhausting and unfair and absolutely necessary." They sat in silence for a moment, watching waves crash against the shore. Rodriguez spoke again. "After this course, where do we go? That depends on your performance and the needs of the teams. But Hayes is already getting requests from SEAL commanders who want female operators for missions where they need someone who can blend into local populations or conduct reconnaissance in areas where male operators stand out. So we will be tokens, useful for specific situations, but not trusted for general operations." Maya shook her head. "You will be pioneers again, opening doors by proving value in roles nobody thought you could fill. Then, when you have proven that, doors open for harder roles. It is incremental. How long does incremental take? Generations." Maya looked at her directly. "We are not doing this for ourselves, Rodriguez. We're doing it for the women who will come after us, so that your daughter, if you have one, will not have to fight as hard as you did. So that eventually being female in special operations is as unremarkable as being left-hand." The final exercise came in week 12. A live-fire operation against simulated enemy forces, combining everything the candidates had learned. Teams of 3, inserted by helicopter into rough terrain, mission to observe and report on a target compound without being detected. Maya paired Rodriguez, Washington, and Nakamura as a team. She wanted to see how they functioned together under maximum pressure. The exercise lasted 72 hours. Maya monitored from the operations center with Hayes, watching thermal feeds and communications intercepts. The female team moved like ghosts. Washington found concealment positions that other teams missed entirely. Rodriguez coordinated their movements with precision timing. Nakamura provided Overwatch with shooting solutions that anticipated enemy patrol patterns. On the 3rd day, the scenario introduced a complication. A simulated civilian was taken hostage in the compound. The team had to decide whether to reveal their position to attempt a rescue or maintain their cover and call for support. Rodriguez made the call. "We hold position and relay intelligence for a quick reaction force." We are not equipped for hostage rescue, and attempting it would compromise the larger mission. It was the correct decision, the hard decision, the one that required accepting that you could not save everyone. When the exercise concluded, all 3 women had performed flawlessly. Their observation logs were detailed and accurate. Their communication discipline was perfect. Their concealment was so effective that Red Team forces never came close to detecting them. Hayes assembled all candidates in the main classroom. Over the past 12 weeks, you have been tested physically, mentally, and morally. Some of you exceeded expectations. Some of you met them. All of you who are still here have earned the right to call yourselves Special Operations Scout Snipers. He began calling names and awarding course completion certificates. When he reached the 3 female Marines, he paused. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, Sergeant Washington, Sergeant Nakamura, you have completed this course with distinction. You have proven that the only thing that matters in special operations is capability, not demographics. You have my respect and my confidence. He handed them their certificates. Welcome to the community. The male candidates applauded. Genuine respect, earned through shared hardship and demonstrated skill. After the ceremony, Vickers appeared. He had flown in specifically for the graduation. He found Maya outside. I heard all 3 of them crushed it. They did more than crush it. They set a new standard. Maya smiled. The next class already has 6 female candidates. Word is spreading that it is possible. You did this. You changed the conversation. We did this. You stood by me when it would have been easier to stay quiet. Hayes fought for me when it would have been safer to let me fall. Everyone who refused to accept that talent has gender contributed to this. Vickers nodded toward the building where the graduates were celebrating. What they accomplished next, that is your legacy. Maya watched through the window as Rodriguez, Washington, and Nakamura talked with male teammates as equals. No asterisks, no qualifications, just operators. The federal courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia stood imposing against a gray November sky. Maya arrived early, her dress uniform immaculate, her bearing that of a Marine who had nothing left to prove. 6 months had passed since Reeves' arrest. 6 months of preparation for this moment. Hayes waited on the courthouse steps, also in dress uniform. His cane was gone now, replaced by a barely perceptible limp. Physical therapy had done what it could. The rest was stubbornness. Ready for this? He asked. As ready as I will ever be. They passed through security and into a courtroom already filling with spectators. Military personnel, journalists, family members of the 12 operators who had died because of Reeves' betrayal. The gallery was a sea of dress uniforms representing every branch of service. Garrison sat at the prosecution table with 3 other attorneys. He nodded to Maya as she entered. Reeves sat at the defense table in civilian clothes, his military bearing still evident despite everything. He did not look at Maya. The judge entered and court was called to order. The prosecution began methodically building their case. Financial records showing unexplained deposits totaling over $2 million. Communication intercepts between Reeves and foreign intelligence officers. Testimony from other arrested conspirators who had accepted plea deals. Then Garrison called Maya to the stand. She was sworn in and took her seat. Garrison approached with a folder. Staff Sergeant Shun, please tell the court about your interaction with the defendant on the 15th of last month during Operation Highland Rescue. Maya recounted the mission in detail. Hayes being hit. Reeves ordering the abort. Her decision to pursue anyway. The rescue and recovery of critical intelligence. And what did you observe about Master Chief Reeves' behavior during this operation? He reported that thermal imaging showed no heat signature at Commander Hayes' location. I visually confirmed that Hayes was alive and mobile. The thermal report was either equipment failure or deliberate misrepresentation. Reeves' attorney objected. Speculation, Your Honor. The judge sustained it, but the point was made. Garrison continued. Staff Sergeant, were you subsequently recruited to assist in an investigation of Master Chief Reeves? Yes, sir. The Defense Department Inspector General's office approached me after the rescue mission. What did they ask you to do? To allow my career to be destroyed publicly while they build a case against Reeves. to sacrifice everything I had worked for so that he would feel secure enough to make mistakes. And did you agree to this? I did. Why? Because 12 Americans were dead, and I had the chance to stop the person responsible from killing more. That was worth any personal cost. Garrison played the audio recording from the cafe meeting. Reeves' voice filled the courtroom, admitting to providing intelligence to foreign operatives, justifying the deaths of American soldiers as necessary costs of doing business. The gallery stirred. Family members of the dead operators wept. Military personnel sat rigid with controlled fury. When the recording finished, Garrison asked, "Staff Sergeant Chun, during this meeting, were you afraid?" "Yes, sir." "Of what?" "That Reeves would realize it was a trap. That he would kill me before the FBI could intervene. That I would fail and 12 deaths would remain unavenged." "But you proceeded anyway." "I proceeded because it was my duty." The defense attorney cross-examined Maya for 2 hours, trying to paint her as vengeful, as someone who had fabricated evidence to destroy a man who had legitimately removed her from special operations. But every attack fell flat against the audio recording, the financial evidence, the testimony of co-conspirators. When Maya finally stepped down, she felt lighter. The last piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. The trial continued for 3 more days. Expert witnesses testified about the intelligence Reeves had sold and the operations it had compromised. NSA analysts explained the communication networks he had used. Financial investigators traced money from Russian accounts through shell corporations to Reeves' offshore holdings. On the 4th day, the defense rested without calling Reeves to testify. There was nothing he could say that would overcome the evidence. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous on all counts. Guilty of espionage, guilty of conspiracy, guilty of treason. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later. Reeves was led away in handcuffs, his face expressionless. As he passed Maya's seat, he stopped. The bailiff moved to keep him walking, but Reeves spoke quickly. "You think this changes anything? You think you proved something? All you did was make yourself a target for people who do not forgive or forget." Maya met his eyes calmly. "I made myself a Marine who kept her oath. What you made yourself is in that jury's verdict." He was led away. Maya did not watch him go. Outside the courthouse, media had gathered. Garrison gave a brief statement about justice being served and thanking all those who had contributed to the investigation. He did not mention Maya by name, but several journalists had done their research. One called out, "Staff Sergeant Chun, how does it feel to have taken down one of the most decorated SEALs in history?" Maya paused. Master Chief Reeves took himself down the moment he decided money was worth more than the lives he was sworn to protect. "I just helped prove it. Will you return to special operations?" "I am already there, training the next generation to understand that excellence and honor matter more than tradition or prejudice." Hayes joined her as they walked away from the cameras. "You handle that well. I have had practice being questioned about my choices." They drove back to the airport in silence. The trial was over. Reeves would spend the rest of his life in prison. The conspiracy he had been part of was dismantled. Justice had been served as much as justice ever was. But Maya felt no triumph, just quiet satisfaction that she had kept her promise. To her brother, to herself, to everyone who believed that some things were worth fighting for regardless of cost. 2 weeks later, Maya stood on the Coronado Beach watching a new class of candidates begin their training. Rodriguez, Washington, and Nakamura were now assistant instructors, helping shape the Marines and SEALs who would follow them. Hayes approached from the training compound. "I have news. The Secretary of the Navy is awarding you the Navy Cross for your actions during the Reeves investigation. The ceremony is next month." Maya watched the candidates running the beach. "That is kind of them, but the real victory is out there. Those 12 candidates include 4 women. A year ago, that would have been impossible. Both things can matter." Hayes stood beside her. "You changed the culture, and you stopped a traitor. Most people do not accomplish either in a full career. What about you, sir? What is next?" Hayes smiled. "I have been offered a position at the Naval Academy, teaching future officers about leadership and ethics." Apparently my recent experiences make me qualified. Will you take it? I think so. My days of running missions are over. But teaching the people who will lead those missions, that still matters. They watched the sun begin its descent toward the ocean, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. Maya spoke quietly. Do you think David would be proud? My brother. Do you think he would understand what I did? Hayes considered the question. I think he would understand that you turned his death into meaning. That you made sure what happened to him could not happen to others. That is all we can do with loss. Transform it into purpose. A figure approached from the training compound. A young female Marine, newly arrived, nervous but determined. She saluted. Staff Sergeant Shun? I am Private Alicia Rodriguez. Elena Rodriguez is my sister. She told me to find you when I arrived. Maya returned the salute. Welcome to Coronado, Private. Are you ready to work harder than you have ever worked in your life? Yes, Staff Sergeant. Good. Report to the training office at 0500 tomorrow. We start with a 12-mile ruck march just to see if you are serious. The private's eyes widened, but she nodded. Yes, Staff Sergeant. She saluted again and hurried away. Hayes chuckled. You enjoy terrifying them. I enjoy preparing them for reality. There is a difference. Fair point. They turned back toward the compound as the sun touched the horizon. Behind them, the ocean continued its eternal rhythm. Before them, the next generation prepared to prove themselves worthy of the uniform they wore. Maya thought about the journey that had brought her here, the grief that had driven her to join, the determination that had pushed her through Scout Sniper School, the 18 months proving herself to a team that did not want her, the impossible choice to sacrifice everything for justice, the months of waiting and doubt, the triumph of vindication, the deeper satisfaction of changing what came next. She had kept her promise to David. Nobody would be left behind. Not on her watch. Not while she had breath to fight and voice to teach. Hayes broke the silence. Any regrets? Maya considered the question honestly. About the path I took? No. About the cost? Sometimes. But regret is just another weight to carry. I would rather carry purpose. That is what makes you a good Marine. You understand that service is not about personal glory. It is about making things better for those who come after. Did you always understand that? No. Hay smiled. I had to learn it from people like you. They walked back to the compound together, two warriors who had fought different battles toward the same goal. Behind them, the candidates continued their training. Before them, the future waited to be shaped. If you enjoyed this story, please drop a comment and let us know your favorite part, character, or if you have had a similar situation happen to you before. Your engagement helps us create more stories that honor the courage and sacrifice of those who serve. Maya Chun had entered special operations as an outsider, trying to prove she belonged. She left it as an architect of change, ensuring that belonging was determined by capability rather than assumptions. The teams would never be the same. Neither would she. Some promises took years to keep. Some sacrifices demanded everything. But standing on that beach, watching the next generation of warriors prepare to carry forward the values she had fought to protect, Maya understood that the hardest battles were often the ones that change hearts rather than terrain. She had won both, and that was enough.